Let's see.
My iPad always had some time on it.
Good thing you ain't going that much good last Thursday. It was the most depressing why you head back.
All right, on stick. Oh, yeah, stick.
They showed that Clark, the Cubs mascot, said he's been traded to Build-A-Bear.
That's cute.
All right.
I didn't. I knew better than Hardy.
I learned a few things after a few years in there.
I'm not stupid.
There you go.
I may look that way.
All right, we'll start the meeting. Call to order. Diane, you'll do the invocation. Thank you.
We thank you tonight for the opportunity to work on budgets. We are fortunate to live in a city that is growing instead of declining. We take our responsibilities seriously and ask for wisdom and sound judgment as we consider the use of taxpayer monies. Help us to be alert, respectful, and productive in our discussions with one another and our city employees. We are thankful we live where we can discuss these matters openly and publicly. In your name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, let the minutes reflect we're all here in person tonight. And barely.
Yeah, I made it back, yeah. Didn't plan on being here.
Let's start with the approval of the minutes from the last meeting, July 19th.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll second it.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Abstain?
Oh, Josh, all right. Passed 6-0 with one abstention. All right, well, welcome all our visitors tonight, mostly department heads, for good reason. Lynn, any comments on the MediaCom report?
No, it's staying pretty steady from over the last year.
All right. All right, then let's move into unfinished business. This would be ordinance 2020-10701, which is the second reading of the salary ordinance amendment for the IT Governance Committee. And that passed at last meeting, and we're here for a second reading. I would like to straighten a few things out. I know there's been some discussion and misunderstanding, maybe, and the whole idea of this, the IT Governance Committee was formed as a result of our organizational and operational review, and it was probably the highest item on the list. And instead of hiring an IT individual, we have developed a permanent committee within the city of those jobs that are involved in IT, systems administrator, police department, GIS coordinator at the utility, and the communications director for the mayor. Those are the three members that will be permanently on the committee. And the idea is to get their duties, their new duties, their IT Governance Committee duties in their job descriptions, so that if one of them leaves, when we rehire for their position, they will be required to have that skill to be a part of the IT Governance Committee. Now, the fourth member of the IT Governance Committee happens to be our airport manager, who has those IT skills and is a welcome member. He was chosen by the group to be a part of this committee because of his skills. we did not want to put the IT role in his job description because we didn't want to limit ourselves when we look for an airport manager down the road. So he will be treated as a member of the IT committee, governance committee, and will receive a stipend for his work. But it will not be put, the whole idea was to put this in the job description so that it becomes a permanent committee and not an ad hoc committee. So those roles, those jobs, those 3 jobs will have job descriptions that include being a member of the IT governance committee. The group has been working for about a year now and is continuing to work into the end of the year. And I had talked with Jennifer about their need to be compensated for the work they've done and to be compensated if we put that in their job description for the future. And we decided on an amount of $5,000 for each one of those individuals. This salary amendment is basically to catch them up this year for their work this year. So with the pay period July 25th, 2021, $454.55 through the rest of the year, that would equivalent of the $5,000. So then that amount will be added to their current salary at the end of the year, and then whatever the increase is that everyone else is getting this year happens to be 3.5%, that will be their salary for 2022. There was an error that there would be an additional $5,000 given next year, as is reflected. I know in my budget it shows that, but that amount is not correct. The $5,000 that's being provided in this amendment is to create that $5,000 and compensate them for their additional responsibilities. It is not a stipend per se, and we wanted it reflected in their job description and then in their salary. So with that, I would take questions.
Well, I guess I have a few concerns. I'm not opposed to paying more money to folks that, you know, are doing specific jobs such as this. I guess I have just a little bit of a problem with the precedent of making it retroactive. And I guess I would also like to get a better understanding of the qualifications that we are going to be asking these people to have, as well as an idea about what, you know, what similar types of positions are being paid. I know we have before us a $5,000 increase. I don't know whether, is that enough? Is that too much? I guess I would feel a little more comfortable having a couple more weeks just to answer a few more questions about it, trying to understand, as I meet with department heads, a little bit about how the governance committee interfaces with them. So again, not opposed to giving an increase, just need to get a little more understanding.
I do know that that's one of the things that has been requested of the Wagner study, but that will not be done until December. So I don't know that we can get your one answer. Now, the other answer, last meeting, we were given quite an extensive job description as to what they were going to be required to do and what they needed to know to do their job. That was part of our attachment last time. And I'm not sure if they can get, I don't know if there's anything more specific they can give as far as that goes. We did ask the question last time, if you remember, whether or not they were going to be required to have any certain certifications, you know, like Microsoft certifications or something, and the answer was no, that it was going to be based on ability and understanding of the way the city government worked. So I do remember the answer to that question, Cindy.
I was just thinking, well, the criteria for the governance committee, I think that part we did not get until,
Yeah, we did. It was an attachment last time.
I didn't see it on mine.
Um,
I'm sorry, I did not see it. I know they were passed out at the meeting, and I did
maybe it
understand that
was
that was what
passed
the
out.
committee was
Yeah.
to do, the criteria for the committee, how that related to their job qualifications or description. I guess I wasn't sure.
I think the thinking is that it's inherent that someone who's a systems administrator in the police department is going to have those skills to understand the high-level technical knowledge. Same thing with the GIS coordinator working with multiple layers of GIS data. In fact, those two individuals essentially helped us as we were forming and building our network and helping us find the right specifications for that. And the same with someone in a communications setting who's been, again, doing the same thing. So I don't know that you're going to find specific requirements other than you want those people to have the highest technical skills in your city are going to be a part of that committee. But to do that is going to require extra time. And that's what this is about. It's not that we're going out and trying to create a level of expertise. You know, we put some money in for an IT individual, and we had been told that the range of hiring someone for IT is across the board, and you don't know what you're getting. It's the wild, wild west. We actually checked other cities and towns and found out what they were doing with IT governance. No one's got an IT governance committee. And those that do have paid tremendous and very high amounts to hire someone, and we felt it was a distinct advantage to have our individual employees who work in those departments that have the highest technical demand to be on that committee, especially as we're starting this. You know, yes, sir.
You said it, the extra time. How much extra time do they actually spend over and above their normal hours?
I would say they're spending a significant amount of time.
Well,
They've met with the department heads, they've met with all the departments, they work through daily concerns, they're building up a network of educational programs for those that are new in the city that need the technical training. So
Yeah.
there's quite a bit of time, Jerry.
now, these people aren't salaried now?
No, just Nick, as I explained.
And they're just, in other words, they're all paid on an hourly rate.
Yes.
Okay.
So let me, I mean, again, we're getting started with this. We're formalizing this IT governance committee.
Can I speak a minute here? Getting started is a big word for me. High priority, connecting different departments. We've not only talked about this, whether it's a dump truck, whether it's asphalt paving, whether it's whatever it is, manpower. But a high priority was technology and linking the different departments. And how do we do that? What I like about this is we do have, it's internal. It is far cheaper than the Wild West going out and getting somebody from the outside. This group is going to be able to, A, where are we today? Where have we been? They're going to be able to work through countless problems. They know the different departments. It basically, I would argue, will be much cheaper than it would be bringing in somebody that's not familiar with what's going on. And we think of time, I would argue, as a public school teacher, when I call the tech department for help, it may be a part of that tech person's job to come in and help me. And again, I would say that these are added responsibilities, but when the tech person comes into my classroom and fixes my problem, you want to talk time for me, for the people that I'm serving, all of the students, and I imagine it's the same thing with the city. What they'll be able to do is help us. And where will we be 2 or 3 years with this governance committee? Could it be at that point we now know enough, we need to go a different direction? And if we are going to hire somebody from the outside, if we do want to make major changes, I like the idea that we have this committee that is communicating with the mayor, the council, other individuals to tell us what actually we need. I don't know what we need as a council member, but I'm hoping that this committee, after a year, what they've already done, all the work that they're doing now, high priority list, what they've already been asked to do and what they'll do in the future, I think that would be very advantageous. My comment. Thank you.
Jerry and Cindy, I too have an issue if what we were voting on is somebody doing something extra during their regular job, you know. And I think that's the question. And so when I delved into it, because we had a couple weeks here, you know, to check on it, when I was delving into it, what I found out was that their job descriptions had actually changed to require a higher skill level in order to be able to do this job. And so what we're doing with the salary ordinance is compensating for that change in job description rather than paying somebody extra. Because I can look at you department heads here, and I absolutely know from each one of you that during COVID especially, you put in countless extra hours rethinking. I'm having to sit on park board, right? And I know how much time every time a program came up and it had to be canceled, and then it had to be redone, you know, and it had to be put on social media or something. You know, I know the time they spent at home working on that late at night and, you know, doing things like that. I know how that the best laid funeral can run over, trains can get stuck, you know. Scott, I know you guys don't cut off when there's an emergency in the city and you don't just send everybody home. They stay past their job. Brian, I've seen you down on my street cleaning out a sewer at 10 o'clock at night because it's backing up, you know. I mean, I think every one of our departments do extra stuff. And so that was what I was wrestling with, honestly, was, you know, are we just compensating for people and not all the other people in the city that are going above and beyond their job duties? I mean, I think that's a real question. And I look in the mayor's budget this year, and we had a position called mayor's assistant, which has now been renamed to communications director in order to accurately describe what that person's doing now. And I don't know, I haven't looked at the other departments' budgets for sure to see if they renamed their positions or added this, but I just know that it's an extra job duty. Like when Jeff and I took on department head at school, it's an extra duty. And sometimes those duties take place during your regular workday, and sometimes they run over because it's just the nature of what you're doing. So I thought, if I'm not mistaken, that what we're actually voting on is a job description change as opposed to giving somebody extra money for doing extra work in their regular job. I don't know how the rest of you were seeing it, but that's what I understood from Jennifer and from exploring, you know, what was actually going on with this job.
And I guess maybe going back to something Jeff said, that we may decide a couple of years down the road that we need to move in a different direction, but then we've already built that money into the salaries, so you can't really take it away once you've built it in there. So I guess the whole thing is just very new. And
I guess I would argue that point, because if you change a job description, you can change the salary
And the salary ordinance is just the maximum amount allowed.
for a year.
Yeah.
But I mean, because so if that's no longer part of a job description, the same thing that we're doing right now can happen and go in reverse.
And that's really the problem. We have not kept up with technology. We have not created job descriptions that allow us to utilize the hardware that you all have been so kind to allow the city to purchase, to, go to a fiber network that gives us endless possibilities, gives the departments endless possibilities, but there needs to be some centralization of the IT governance. And if you go back and read what was written in the organizational review, that was at the top of the list, that we were floundering we're a boat with one oar in the water when it comes to trying to harness our technology. And that's all we're trying to do here. I just, and we feel like I mean, 4 employees at $5,000, $20,000, if you could see the list of projects that they've got, that they have already gotten us to a point where they've got the department heads and everyone centralized now. They're centralizing the budget, as you'll see later today. And, you know, they're going to require that everything go through that committee when a purchase is made, when a software purchase is made, when a department has an idea, when a new software comes out. You know, they're the ones that are going to guide our department heads to harness the technology that we've got for $20,000.
Josh, I hate to put you on the spot, but you're really our resident expert.
That's not good. So the governance committee, just so I'm clear, I absent last meeting, they're liaising to the outside. We have an outside firm that is still going to work on our software.
So we contract with
And-
BIT, who's
Yes.
been with us. He's
Yeah.
the high-level expert.
Okay.
But they're actually, we have contracted and will contract him
Yeah.
to do all of that work.
Yes, somebody's
But he needs
computer breaks.
direction.
He gets called and he comes and fixes it, right? Is that, okay. So I get the IT governance committee then, these 4 individuals are also then, I want to make sure I have this completely understood. They're going to go to the department heads, whoever else throughout, you know, all the city employees and determine what they feel needs to be done from an IT standpoint from the outside that's going to then take us, you know, move us forward in that process. Is that correct?
So they went through, they met with every department head
Mm-hmm.
and talked about their current uses of technology, their future desires, their current equipment
Mm-hmm.
and equipment and networking possibilities. The Elements software is the big one.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably familiar with Elements. It is a capital asset management software that can do a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the smaller departments need that guidance with our group that will then say, this is how we want to employ this across the departments. And then we call Brady and say, okay, Brady, this is how we want to set this up.
Okay.
So they are governance committee. They are determining how the city and the departments are going to use technology.
Yep.
For $20,000.
Okay. So before this committee was created, what was the process?
There was none. That's what, if you remember,
Yeah.
our organizational and operational review identified that as the top priority.
Okay, all right, okay. One thing I will say in the IT world, that position of this committee is usually held by one individual, and it's called a network administrator. Just if anybody was curious on the job title. Depends on the size of the company, but we have, what, 250 employees? 200? Yeah, so, you know, I would take a stab and say that's probably about an $80,000 a year position in the private sector, just at a regular company that has a network administrator. So to do it for 20, I agree, would be quite a bargain. My main concern in just hearing through, or thinking through this and hearing about this, is the difference between a $80,000 network administrator and 4 people. Not to take anything away from them, but obviously they've most likely have a IT degree, multiple different certifications, and, you know, Microsoft and Google, et cetera, you know. So for me, the biggest thing is identifying here as a group is the $60,000 gap in pay, and I'll just call it that. That's a hypothetical number, but approximate $60,000 gap in pay, worth it to have internal employees handle that, or do you feel that paying a little bit more and trying to get a network administrator in this same role would accomplish the same thing. It would be a little bit more money, but it would also be somebody that's, you know, gone to school and has years of experience doing this. So that would be my biggest question is, you know, and again, taking nothing away from those individuals. I'm sure they you know, they use the system every day. They know it better than anybody. So, you know, I want to make sure I'm making that clear. I'm not trying to take away from them, but I do think there's a big gap between finding people internally that can potentially do what's needed and looking maybe on the outside. I know there are some people that consult, and they might be a little cheaper because they don't have to be, you know, full-time. They can work on an hourly rate, potentially. But, you know, that's really my 2 cents is I think that I'm glad we're looking into this. IT is a monster, and it changes. It's probably changed since we started having this conversation. So you do need people that know what they're doing and very well versed in that. So, you know, that I would just, I guess, ask all of you to think through that before we make a decision tonight is, you know, and I don't necessarily know what the answer is, you know. Are these 4 people adequate to do what we're asking them to do? Or does it make sense to go outside and potentially try to find somebody? And if we can't, or if we try and it doesn't work, obviously come back to this. Or
do it the opposite
or
way and
do it the
start with
opposite.
this, and then if it doesn't work.
now, we can go out to the outside. But just something to consider.
I think what's really important is to understand what the organizational review said to do. It said the city should implement a robust IT governance framework, which will ensure that long-term strategic, IT strategic plan is integrated with overall city strategic and comprehensive planning efforts, which is what this group is it's called the IT Governance Committee. We're forming this committee. And I can honestly say, probably down the road, they'll depending on the quality of like the bit that we're using right now, the contracted service, you know, they can work with him. They can direct him on what they want to do. They set the framework. They have worked with the department heads. You know, they are coming up with the framework of what needs to be done. As far as a network administrator, you know, that's something that could come down the road. I'm not saying it can't, but we are starting out, and I actually went to this group and said, you guys need to help me find a network administrator. And they spent 3 or 4 months looking, seeing what was available, and decided that by hiring our current individual that handles the repairs and maintenance and the network maintenance, if you will, that to form this governance committee, they could do that to get us off the ground. And that's really, I think, what, with all due respect to your comments, I completely understand. I wished we could have hired somebody and just gotten somebody in here and said, here, you know, give them whatever they're worth. But we talked to a lot of different communities that have IT directors. They don't have IT governance. They've got IT directors. And some of them aren't worth, I mean, they essentially will get you a new printer and make sure it works. And others are, if you get somebody that's really good, you're not going to be able to keep them for what they're paid. And that's really what the IT Governance Committee said. Let's determine what we want to do. And let's make sure that we can handle the day-to-day issues of maintenance, network maintenance, and help desk support, which is what we're paying Brady to do now. This group is merely setting policy, governance policy that was the top priority within this study. That's what they're doing. They're not trying to be network administrators. They're trying to get us off the ground. And I know that this is hard to understand. I'm not a tech guy, but this group, I gave them 3 or 4 months to find someone to hire, and they came back and said, you know, where we're at right now, where the departments are at right now, we feel like we can put this together, and with the assistance of BIT and who we've used in the past, our contractor, to do all that maintenance, you know, we will continue on, and we will start. I mean, These individuals understand how elements work. They were already putting elements out into the other departments. Does it mean they're the best to do that? Maybe not, but to get started, they know what they're doing. And all they're trying to do is say, okay, the city's invested $1 million plus in a fiber network. Now, what are we doing with it? And that was a concern I had. We were up to speed from a hardware standpoint, but we had departments that were using the same programs, similar programs, but totally against each other. They couldn't integrate them. And all this group has done is taken that survey of those different departments and said, look, if we're going to do this type of software, this is the one we're going to do. If we're going to do Gmail, if we're going to do email for our city, this is what we're going to do. And not only that, we haven't even talked about the importance of encryption and making sure that all this stuff is backed up, and cyber attacks. If you don't have somebody overlooking that and overseeing that, I don't have to tell you guys how critical that is. So getting this group off the ground for what I considered our top minds in our city that understand IT better than anyone, to put us on a path to make sure that we're not going to get left behind or we're not going to be vulnerable, only made sense.
What is our annual contract with BID? What does that amount to?
We just started, the contract is $120,000 a year. And that's for unlimited service, and that's their group of employees on call at any time through all our departments. And you'll see tonight in the budget, we've centralized that into the council budget. So you're going to see big numbers in the budget that represent what the governance committee has done by bringing everything together.
And I'm assuming if there's a software issue, Element will provide that as part of our cost of doing business with them, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay.
What I like about the IT governance committee is that you have, instead of one set of eyes in a network administrator position, looking at the overall problem, meeting with various department heads, you have 4 sets of eyes. Now, are any one of them as knowledgeable or as certified as the one person who's focused on one area? No. But at the same time, they come at it from different points of view, talking to different people, talking to the department heads. Each one of them, by the way, much like us, coming back with our own interpretation of what the department head said. And then they would hash it out to come up with the best overall plan for the entire city. Frankly, when it came to this fellow that we're about to, what's the title for this guy that we've got? He's who's going to be putting things into place.
He's our network administrator.
Okay, so he's the network administrator. He's putting things together. He's taking care of the nuts and the bolts, making sure that we're up and running all the time. These 4 people will be feeding the information in to him, making sure that we're going down a path, we're going in the correct direction, trying to bring all the departments together on a single platform instead of what we've done in the past, which has been, and I've been there, as Biomet was growing. It was something that we struggled with for a long time. And eventually IT had to wrest control from each one of the departments. And you will find that even in a company like that, though, although you may have network administrators, when it comes to a new software that needs to be purchased or looked at, it's not left up to one person. They will bring people from each department and decide what is their best needs for each one of them. You don't get all that you want within a certain, Parks Department may not get everything that they want. They may have to give up a little bit because Street Department needs something a little different. But they come up with the best overall that'll fit the entire city. And I see this as, frankly, probably a more effective way, a more efficient way to use the money. So I think the IT Governance Committee is a good thing.
One other question I have now that I was kind of thinking through this, is this committee going to provide education to all the city employees, whoever would use the software and hardware potentially and need it?
Yeah, they've already started.
Okay.
They're actually going to create a series of recorded training videos. So
Okay.
if somebody comes in and they're weak on Excel, and so
Yeah.
they're gonna do that. And then they go up into the Adobe and all that
A little more advanced
Photoshop
stuff, yeah.
and,
Okay.
Publisher.
Okay.
So part of their goal is to create, and they felt that was low-hanging fruit. That was something that they saw as a need in the city, an easily attainable need, to create training for our employees.
Okay.
I already asked Jack if we could have someone using some of our features.
Absolutely.
And we're probably, I talked to the mayor about it, and it looks like we may end up being the first group that gets to take part in something like that. We'll see.
I guess I'm okay with the idea of trying this first. Josh, you gave us two different scenarios of maybe trying this to see if it meets our needs, because it certainly, when I look at the recommendation to coordinate with our strategic plan and our overall goals, that's got to be somebody that is really familiar with how the city runs. So, I feel okay with starting off with this, but I think that we do need to review it. I think, Cindy, you make a really good point that we need to keep looking at that and seeing whether that's really, what's happening and helpful. Mike, go ahead.
The great points by everybody. Getting it off the ground, and then related to what Diane just said. Josh, if you're right, that would be 4 years to get to 80,000. What if the decision, what she just said, we need to review it and continue to figure out, this is priority number one, get it on the launch pad, get it off the ground. Wouldn't we be better off, how about this, the mayor, one or two of us, and this governance committee interviewing somebody if we did need that individual at 80 to 100,000, $120,000, how much we're going to learn. I think it's lower risk. It gets us to the launch pad. It gets us off the ground. And if Larry gets frustrated, if Hal gets frustrated as we try to work through all this stuff, I'm actually glad it'll be internal. It won't be just somebody from the outside that really just hasn't been a part of our history. Present day, aware of his department, yep, but I'm aware of the airport. I know what's going on with police. I just think it's a great step for us to take. And so I'm actually stealing from all of you guys. I'm in agreement we should move forward with this.
So let me just read the Baker-Tilly recommendation one more time, because I think it fits into what we've been talking about. It says the city should consider hiring a full-time IT coordinator to provide help desk support and IT project management. The city can also continue to use contracted services for specialized and complex support and to supplement internal staffing levels for large projects. Additionally, the city should implement a robust IT governance framework which will ensure that long-term IT strategic plan is integrated with overall city strategic and comprehensive planning efforts. That recommendation is essentially what the IT group followed. They decided instead of hiring someone, they wanted to contract it out, and they formed this IT governance framework. So they've actually, in the last year, they've met all of the two basic points of these recommendations, and with the goal of establishing a governance framework within the city, and then who knows what happens after that? It's new.
What are you thinking, Mike? I had a great discussion with Mike. I want to put him on the spot. We talked good, it was a great discussion, and I wasn't sure that we had made any decision, but we talked about this. What do
We
you
did
feel?
talk
I'd like to
about
know
it.
what you're thinking. You haven't said anything.
Well, I've been listening, and this has given me quite a bit of angst this past week. I agree with what the mayor just read, that we need to be on board, we need to be doing something to protect the city. I'm not sure of the framework. To Jerry's point, these people are salaried. Diane made the point for Jerry when she was talking to them about, we're all asked to do more, and if we do more, let's pay our people. Some of them are at 35 hours a week, some of them are at 40. If they have to work a few more hours, let's pay them overtime. I don't have a problem with that. I think where I'm really struggling is just because you have a change in job description doesn't mean you have a change in job knowledge or credentials. You could say, a biplane is an airplane, but so is a monoplane is an airplane. And one's a biplane, one's a monoplane, but they're both airplanes. So if you change a job description, it doesn't mean that person is any more qualified than they were 5 minutes before when they were called the other job description. Once you implement that job description at a certain pay level, to Cindy's point, you can't go back. So if, going forward, these people with new job descriptions and a new nice raise in pay, and one of them leaves, but somebody else comes in, let's just say for the street department, and they've got great credentials, are they going to come in at their pay, and these other three are going to be up here at a higher rate of pay? The only way to get him up is maybe to increase his job description. So I want to pay people. I have real concerns about creating animosity within the city employees. I think some employees are seeing this and thinking, wow, well, those guys got a nice raise. I'm not getting that much raise. I'm going to get 3.5%. I'm struggling. I really am. And I don't see why this is a rush. I really don't. They've worked over half a year. Pay them for what they've done. And I'm never really fast at trying to make big decisions, and to me, this is a big decision. I understand there's a need. I really understand there's a need, and I want us to be the best we can be. I want all of us to be the best we can be. I want people to want to work for the city of Warsaw. I want to be one of the best employers around, treat people fairly. I want them to make a living wage. I want the city to be safe from malware attacks. I want all of our department heads to have the best software that they can possibly have. But I'm just struggling a little bit, and I only ask for some more time. And if it comes to a vote tonight, up or down, I'm going to have to vote no. I hope it doesn't. I would like to just table it and gather more information. I've been extremely busy this past month with my work and not always able to do perhaps the due diligence that I should do. And I got a busy month ahead of me. After that, it's going to be a little easier. But yet it's still 2021, so perhaps we can revisit this once we get through the budget process. I've been spending a lot of time talking to department heads, trying to run a business, and I'm just struggling with this, and I'm sorry. I don't want to derail it. I'm just having a tough time with it.
My comment, I was going to make good points, and again, I appreciate talking to you, is the expectations, informal expectations of this governance committee, and then the formal expectations of the meetings that they're going to have. So it's not just a job description, and you got to be qualified, but now it's going to be, you will be doing X, Y, Z. I don't have the form in front of me now, but I thought it was up to 20, minimum dozen, it could have been up to 20 meetings, somebody can correct me, but formal, that's not the informal that they'll be asked to do.
See, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so,
There's
but
just a
please
lot, I
correct me
guess
if I'm
I-
wrong. Am I remembering, Mayor, that there's a list that's set that they are asked to meet, they're asked to, it's formal and informal. It was on the sheet. Sorry, I don't have the sheet in front of me, so I don't want to mislead anybody, but thanks, Mike.
Well, and I gave you an example last time. They spent 3 hours, about 2 hours trying to decide on an ID card for the ID card system for the city. Every department has a different need for ID cards. And we ended up coming up with a pretty decent solution. But the IT Governance Committee had to talk through that with those affected. It was a 2-hour meeting for one issue. I mean, it's we are in an age now where if we are exposed to malware, if we don't encrypt, if we don't back up, and we don't utilize technology to the fullest, we're left behind. There's just no question about that. And I just think that this group meets the stated need from the recommendations, Baker Tilly recommendations. They've already done, they've not just been working for a half year, they've been working for a year to get us to this point. This all started last year, and they've gotten to the point, they've spent a year getting to the point we're at right now.
So they started in like mid-2020?
Yeah. No, mid-2020. When these, whatever the date is on here, they were on it.
Mike, when you said pay them for what they've already done, I'm confused as to how we might do that without going ahead and doing this stipend for right now, because they started in mid-2020, so they've already been working almost an entire year now. So by the time it'll be like 15, 16 months of work, and we don't have, a record at this, like a meticulous record or anything. It seems almost like if we're going to pay them for what they've done so far, it has to be with this stipend right now. And then I could see looking.
Is this a stipend or is this a raise in pay across the board?
It's a
To me, a
stipend right
is a
now.
one-time
It's a stipend.
bonus.
Well, it's a stipend right now that they spread out over several pay periods, rather than giving it to them all in one lump sum. So they spread it out between now and the end of the year. So it's a stipend to cover what they've already done. And then what you're talking about and what Cindy's talking about is next year's salary. And we would have for next year, not till the end of this year, we'd have to at least put money in there thinking we're going to cover it one way or the other, either with this committee or hiring an IT coordinator. We'd have to have money in the budget, in our salary ordinance, and then we could decide how to spend that. Once we get that recommendation, Cindy, like you were asking, we would know what, we got a good ballpark from Josh of what it would cost, but, we would know what it would cost, and we could get, we could ask them to start keeping track of how many meetings they do and, how much time it takes and stuff, if you guys want that level of detail. But in order to pay them for what they've already done, what this is in front of us is a stipend, and it's spread out then over the remaining pay periods of the year in order to cover what they've done for the last 15 months.
The biggest thing I see is, did they do this during the regular hours, or did they spend extra hours at the end of the day, or come back in the evening and get together then? That's, if they did it on the regular hours,
I guess I'd like to address that point.
okay.
And to borrow from something that Mike brought up as far as the airplane pilots and having a monoplane or a biplane or let's go a little bit farther, maybe even a turbojet or something like that. Although those pilots may fly the same amount of hours, they're definitely compensated a different amount based on their knowledge and their skills and their abilities. And I look at this as being the same way. Now, as far as the other point of if we bring somebody in that happens to be at the city or at the street department that has those skills, I'm sorry, but I would not see where they should be on the committee just because they got the skills. We've got those slots filled. And if they've got them, then fine. But we're probably not going to take advantage of them. We're probably not going to, and we shouldn't pay them more for it. This is something where, we're hired to do a specific job. And if that's part of their job description, then it should be compensated for. But if it's not part of their job description, then they don't get the bump just because they have the knowledge.
So what are you saying?
So, well, I guess simply what I'm saying is that people should be compensated for their skills.
Yeah, no problem.
No problem there? Okay. And if we are asking them to use those skills in their job, and it takes a more skillful person, we need to compensate them for it. Am I still fuzzy with, is everybody else fuzzy on it too?
Flying
or-
your plane
Help me out.
with expectations in formal and formal meeting. You will be doing this.
Yes.
So not only do you have the expertise, not only can you fly the plane, but you're going to be in the plane. You have to. That's what's on this. That's just ground floor. I'll go on record too. This governance committee, I'll be surprised if they still exist 5 years from now. Why? Because they'll do their job, and what will happen is they'll send us in a different direction, and I will say 80 to 100,000 over 5 years in a much better direction when we have to sit down and figure out, okay, where do we go from here in 2025, 2026, or whatever it may be. I just think it's
And
a
if
great
that
step.
happens, you still have the job description in these positions that you're basing a salary on. But now you're not needing those.
Those
people
job
to do-
descriptions
That's
can
gonna
be
be right
changed.
amount.
Which is wage committee, the matrix we have, HR, under the direction of the mayor, we would change.
But do they
that-
change?
Oh, yeah, there would be a change.
Oh, yeah, there
And I
would.
bet the governance committee would say that's the change we want to make. We're no longer doing it. We've just pushed ourselves in a direction to
Mayor,
better.
is it possible to do this like on an annual basis and take it a step at a time and see where we're going? I'm not trying to be obstinate, I'm just trying to really grasp the totality of this and what it means for us.
Well, part of the governance committee is to engage the council and to report to the council twice a year. So that's part of the governance committee, Mike. That's part of the whole
They've
thing.
been working a year, I've never heard from them.
Mike, they haven't formalized yet.
Until we create the position.
We're
that's
trying to
their job.
formalize them.
It's on that list, that that's what they'll have to do.
Those are those expectations. Yeah.
And I asked them to do that because I knew this was going to be new. And I knew that we were going to have to walk through this. As I said earlier, we checked around the governance committee. The first thing they did was they checked cities and towns similar to ours to find out if they had an IT governance committee. Not one did. They had IT administrators, they had network administrators. They didn't have a governance committee. The guy that comes in that you pay to fix stuff, you got to tell him what to fix. You got to tell him what you want to do in your departments. And to do that, you want people that understand how technology works. They make technology work in their departments. They want to make it work across the departments. They want to make it work in the city. They want a system that is not vulnerable. They want a system where they can run the same program across all the departments to improve efficiency. That's what they want. That's IT governance. That's not somebody coming and saying, what do you want me to do next? Well, we'll tell you what we want you to do next.
Right.
This IT, I don't think the IT governance committee will be gone. I think their work will be much less because they will have created a formalized structure and have gone through the process of setting the direction for how the city's going to use technology. and then they will continue, they'll have to continue to update their training programs. I mean, you guys know how quickly IT changes. We've probably gotten behind sitting here talking about it for an hour.
Josh said that, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, I don't know that, I understand the concern. You know, my goal was to compensate this group for their work and to not wait till next year. That's what this is about. They've been working, July was the draft last year. I know they started in August. They've been working a year or close to it.
Yeah, it says 0803.
yeah.
So bottom line, that is what we're voting on tonight, is are we going to compensate them for the work that they've done up to this point, formalize it between now and the end of the year. Then we're going to get our Wagner study, and we're going to have, the wage committee can look at it like you thought about, Cindy, and see, is this in line, is this something, to continue? Because we have that option before we start in on next year's payroll, that we can change this if we need to. So the vote tonight is only, are we going to compensate them? And like I said, Jerry, I understand what you're saying. We've got 3 people on hourly, no, wait, we've got 2 people on salary, 3
No.
people on hourly, and 1 person on salary on this.
I
And
think
how
it's
you
2 and
even
2.
it out on that, other than giving them a stipend, I don't know. And so to me, we go with this for tonight because we're deciding backwards what's already happened and forward until December 31st. That's all that this ordinance says.
This doesn't formalize the governance committee, right? This just pays them through 2021, and then in 2022, they'll
But
officially,
it
is
says that starting
that right, or am I
tonight.
reading that?
This is
Starting
just for
tonight.
this year.
Yeah, and starting
Okay.
from tonight on, they'll start doing the things on the sheet that was
So it
passed out.
would essentially formalize their existence as a committee, then,
Their
right?
job right
Yeah.
now, yeah.
Okay, all right.
But we can decide we don't want that committee next year if that's what
I
you
just didn't
guys
know if they
wish.
existed
And what
as of
about
tonight or.
the retro pay? I mean, we've never done that I'm aware of.
No, we haven't, I don't think, going back, but I don't think that anybody knew what they were doing until prior to the mayor and Jennifer bringing it to our attention. We didn't know about them, their existence and what they were doing, and that they've been called upon to do these extra things, and that they've been doing them.
Unbeknownst to us.
Right, so they're bringing it to our attention and saying, we think we need to compensate. You could choose not to, and just say, that's too bad, you guys donated your time for the last year. And we'll pay you for the rest.
I know when I was an employee that when you were given certain duties in addition to what you had, and then you weren't compensated for it, it was not, it did not go over well.
Yeah,
It did not, when I did it, I doubt it would go over well if it happened to any of you.
so basically what we're giving them is a stipend right now, yeah. I don't know if there's more to bring up to discuss right now, or if we just need to go ahead and vote for right now. But I think this has really been a good discussion, because it gives us a good idea of the kinds of things that we want to ask and know, like from the Wagner Committee and maybe from this group themselves,
Yeah, they're not even here. So this is good only until January 1st of 2022.
No, until December 31st,
Same difference.
2021. So you can see the schedule of the pay in the last one. It's December 30th, actually. Sorry, I misspoke. 12/30/2021. It's right on the ordinance there.
Would it be an inappropriate question? We have 6 department heads here. Just a show of hands, are you guys happy with the results you're getting from this committee so far? I mean, just even a show of hands, if you.
There you
Okay,
go,
I
unanimous.
have to respect that.
Thank you, if I may say something real quick. Gonna help.
Dustin, would you come up, please?
I mean, I'm really struggling here, so.
We probably use the Elements, program at the street department. I know Mike, Cindy, when you guys were in a while back, Jack, I think even showed you when, just how we do the work orders and stuff like that. Not only has that allowed us to do just that, even how with working with our mechanics, he can get on Elements, type in a program, our mechanics can schedule everything right into it. It's allowed us to go communicate with each other. Brian's department and I, wastewater, communicate, full force with each other. Everybody can use that same program. That didn't happen a year ago. This
Okay.
stuff has opened up since we've got this IT, governance committee. The
Was the
survey we-
software not available to you then, or did they come to you
No,
with
it
the
was. It
software?
wasn't compatible. The other departments weren't using it. That's what this IT governance committee, put in place and got working was that Hal Hay, he had some importance of using that same program. Brian and I were the only two that were on it, to my knowledge.
And Mary on this committee,
In the ability to, I explained to Mary, one of the members of this committee, what I wanted to do with some bigger projects with trash routes and stuff like that. She was able to go through, set up a system that I showed you guys the other day of exactly how to draw things up. So, I mean, in my mind, from what I've used from it, it's been bar none one of the best things that we've happened, that we've been able to be involved in. So that's my 2 cents.
Real quick, Dustin, if you stay up here. So obviously, interdepartment communication's huge. That is something I remember we identified in the strategic planning meeting. I get to go back to a question I asked earlier, and I guess I meant it more in this light. Are all the employees in all of your departments also being trained on how to use this appropriately? Because if they're not, then we're wasting a little bit of money. But I wanted to make sure that this IT governance committee was going to oversee making sure everyone knows how to use it and use it appropriately. I guess.
Yes, absolutely. All our staff, they have iPads with them that's real time, talks back, allows us in the office to communicate with the public as things are going on in real time. So yeah, our employees are very well up to speed on this. And,
Okay.
one of these members of the committee has came over and done an Elements training. We do a refresher. We're constantly, adding new employees, stuff like that. She's came over and helped with the training to get things started as well. So
Perfect.
we use it quite a bit. And,
Thank you.
no problem. Thank you.
So do I understand this is coming out of the police budget somewhere?
Well,
Because the
police
police,
salary ordinance is different.
Brian, did you have something to say?
I did have something to say. We just purchased a new software for our camera truck, and we have videoed 100% of our collection system. Well, we went through this governance committee to make sure we were selecting the right software. So now with Elements, we can pull these videos up right from the field. So when somebody has a question, we don't have to go back to the office and check. We don't have to get with Mary to have her download the video and give it to us. It's been a huge time savings. When we go out and do locates, we can take pictures of everything. So if somebody ever does hit something, we can say, look, it was located. Here's a proof. Here's a date, time, pictures that we had it. So it's been a great asset to us. And this Element software is a powerful tool that we were very underutilizing and still are at this point. We're just now getting into this. So we're trying to develop this. You ask, Elements can do that, but you have to get it set up to do that. So that's what we're struggling with. We have this tool, but we can't utilize it because it's not set up to do everything it can do. So that's where this has been a great thing that we've started working on. I mean, I remember I think I took over this position in '08 and we weren't even taking credit cards at the payment office. And now here we are with fiber and a server. And so this whole thing has moved so quickly over the years. And I think we're just trying to get caught up and then stay caught up with it. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Hal, was the cemetery using this software at all? Or when did it start using it?
It was this year on Elements.
So not until this year?
Correct, is when we learned, this committee brought me into telling me about Elements. Also with Elements, I run GIS software with Mary. I map everything on satellite, all my guests on satellite. This Elements software is going to take over for GIS and help me. I don't know, I'm not tech, I'm sorry, I'm a plug and player. But once Mary can calm down with everything else, this committee is going to come and help put that all together so I don't lose that database and to make it more efficient.
And how did you come to realize that Elements might be the
Mary's gone to these committees, and so are these other people, and they know what elements is due. I don't know the ins and outs. She just said, Hal, we're gonna get together, because this is gonna change the way you do GIS. Because I personally map everybody on GIS. I currently, a database I don't wanna lose, I have over 18,600 guests that I don't want to disappear. That sits on a thing.
I don't think they're going anywhere.
Well, they're not going, but I'll tell you what, if you knew the amount of genealogy that goes on at that cemetery, people calling from all over, this has been a big plus. And like I say, I'm a plug-in player. I need them. Also to tell you, Brady at Big Computers, I love to death. You talk to him about software, he's like, well, yeah, you might want this or whatever. This committee puts it together so we can all communicate, so nobody's grabbing their own stuff.
That's the difference. The hardware and the software guys
I don't
getting
wanna
together.
affect that. We had an incident because I lost some stuff on my computer for something the police department put in, that I had to reboot to get it to my phone. Not that the computer required. Anyway, what it is, what I'm trying to get at is they bought a software that infected it and took stuff out of us.
It was the fire because they were trying to know where all the tunnels were.
And that's a real-time example. That happened, and it was unintentional, but it was an example of departments out doing what they've done in the past, doing their own thing. And the committee got together, and it ruffled some feathers, but at the end of the day, it was the right call.
Yeah, they got fixed through that committee.
And it was all the committee.
Chief Whitaker, could you give us your 2 cents worth, please?
Get ready, Larry.
I just think the key word is that this is a committee, and, multiple people in a committee, you're going to have, it's just going to be less likely to be influenced. I mean, this is going to be involving purchases that, when they meet with you, you're going to be able to ask them about equipment purchases being made throughout the city. And everything from a printer to replacing a computer, and can that computer be just, refurbished, or does it need to be replaced? In the past, we have not had that, so it really falls on your department heads to make those decisions with maybe one other individual in your department, maybe two, but now you're talking about a committee, and I think that's the important thing, as you look at this as a committee. At a committee at $20,000, and like I said, a network manager is not going to be able to provide you what Brady can provide because of the hardware, software, which you know. But what this committee can do is bring these ideas to someone that can actually make it happen. And for the money, to me, even paying both the contractor in the $20,000 is going to be far less than any other route you could take, just hands down.
As a department that deals with a lot of sensitive information, do you think that this committee will be able to help you to keep from getting hacked, or I mean?
Well, absolutely. We have great confidence in everybody in this committee, and they certainly understand the concerns of the entire city. Confidentiality, being hacked is something that the mayor has been concerned about, and it's a real issue for cities all across our nation. So I do know that they're on it and using Brady, and if they have to, they'll reach outside of BIT. But that just is he has been involved in for what the contract is for the city. I just don't believe you're going to be able to hire anybody. And if you bring in somebody else individually, I personally think that now you're looking at a greater cost, more so than a committee.
Thank you. All right.
Okay. I'm
What
going
else?
to make a motion then that we pass ordinance 2021-0701.
Motion by Diane. Is there a second?
Second?
All right. Any further discussion?
I wouldn't mind hearing from the clerk treasurer, department head, elected official. I'd like to get just an opinion. If she doesn't mind.
We're
If you
not going
don't,
to be a part of the elements that I know of, because I don't know all it does, and I haven't been approached about using it. With our software that we use for financial software, before I decided to go with what we went with, I did my due diligence and talked to other clerk treasurers and the programs they use, and went and even saw how some of them used it, and was fine with what I chose. And in the meantime, then when we went with that software, we were asked to be on the testing side committee. So before any updates to our software is done, we're sent that new update to test it out before it goes live with everybody else. And that's worked really fine for us because it helps us customize what we need more to us that will help hopefully everybody else. As far as, you know, the job duties, every year, there's something new put on my office because of legislation or something the State Board of Accounts had. 2 years ago, it was reporting on the redevelopment authority, which we have to report every month. Last year it was CARES Act stuff. This year it's the ARP stuff. Who knows what it'll be next year? It'll be a continuation of ARP plus other things. So I don't know. It's I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but I think everybody has more on their plates as well.
Would you be open to talking to the governance committee if they thought they had something for you?
Oh, I've talked with them. I've reached out to them a couple times. I had a situation with my email, and they helped. And sometimes I have issues with Microsoft. We had a printing problem, and our printer would just go off, and it was after a new Microsoft update that automatically comes on, you know, when you shut down your computer, and it says 28 updates or whatever. But Brady is the one that fixed that, or Bit Computers, and it wasn't the IT committee. So.
It's not their role to fix a
Yeah.
printer. That's what Brady does.
Yep.
But it was due to the software update of Microsoft. So.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? I got one vote. I got 4 votes for, and I don't have any more. Let's try it again. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed, raise your right hand.
I'm doing this reluctantly because I'm still struggling.
I too am struggling. I want to be reassured, this is for this year.
It's for this year. Do you
Okay.
see the date on
It's
it,
a
Mike?
2021 salary ordinance.
All right.
All right, the ayes have it, 4-1, with 2 abstentions. All right, let's move on. Ordinance 2021-0703. This is the second reading for the fee restructuring at Oakwood Cemetery. I know we all approved this at the last meeting. And I would just ask for your consideration tonight. Hal, anything you want to add?
No, we laid changes before you. Just remember, it's been 6 years since we've raised the fee. And I guess it's in front of you for a yea or nay as far as upping the fees.
I move to approve the request.
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0. Thanks, Hal. All right. Let's move into new business. Tonight, we're bringing a memorandum of understanding from the Tippecanoe and Chapman Regional Sewer District. I'm going to let Brian talk about this. Brian actually serves on that committee, and obviously he is our manager out at our utility, so I think no one better to basically take your questions. What's being proposed is that they want to do a memorandum of understanding that we will indeed treat their effluent. The details of that, the deeper financial details will come later on in the actual contract, but as they progress, they want to know that we are willing to take on their effluent, and in light of our expansion and other things, I would ask Brian to go ahead and talk about that, what that will mean for the utility, what that will mean for our rates, our ratepayers, and our revenue.
So yes, the basis of this is just a memorandum of understanding that we are going to accept the flow from that district. They need this for their SRF and USDA loans they're looking at getting. they need some assurance that they have somewhere to send their wastewater. So that's the point of this memorandum of understanding. And the fees and the cost of service, like the mayor said, that will all be determined later in an actual contract written with them, very similar to what we have with Leesburg and Winona Lake. In terms of flow, in this, they're saying somewhere in the 360, 400,000 gallon range is the capacity they'll buy. I guess it may be a little less than that once they get to the point of buying it, but that's what they wanted laid out in the memorandum of understanding. This recent plant expansion took us to a 6 million gallon capacity. So back in 2016, when we first started looking at the plant expansion, it's hard to believe it's been that long ago, our flows were about 3.5 million gallons a day. And in 17, we went to 3.9. In 18, we went to 3.8. And in 19, we went to 3.7. Now remember, at 90% is where IDEM says you need to do something so you don't reach 100% capacity of your plant. Well, 90% for us was 3.5 million gallons. So we were there, but we had already moved in the direction of a plant expansion. Now, 2020, it went to 3.3. So many people got sent home. There's probably a lot of reasons. It may have been a drier year. I didn't look at rainfalls and those things, but a lot of that was due to, I think, people being sent home, factories closing. And 2021 so far, we're still averaging in that lower range, but there's still a lot of people working from home. So I don't know if that's maybe a new normal for us. We've also completed several, $10 million worth of sanitary sewer projects. Maybe we've tightened up our sewer system a little bit. I haven't looked to see build flow versus flow treated to see how much improvement we have seen from that. So the reason I state all that is basically we're still at the same flow we were in 2016. And you typically look at a 20-year life cycle. So this plant, we want to see it last 20 years. And at that point in 2016, if we averaged 80,000 gallons a year increase, which is, I think, in the 2% growth, the plant lasted till 2045, where we're 5 years later and we're still at that same flow. So I would suggest maybe 2050 is if we would start seeing that increase is where the plant expectancy would last to. So it really doesn't hurt our life expectancy of the plant, and it gives us a larger customer base to share the cost of treatment over. So all in all, both financially, I think it's a good move for the city. I don't think it'll affect how soon we need to do a plant expansion per se. I don't know. I guess I'll take questions at this point. I don't know what else you might want to know or.
They were asking, if I remember correctly, for a maximum of 400,000 gallons.
Yes.
Is that correct?
And this has been thought, we started talking with them well before the airport annexation, that industrial park out there. So we built the infrastructure out there with a connection point that would handle the flow from there. So we don't have to do any more improvements to our collection system. We sort of plan for it for the future. It also gives us an opportunity to expand further in that direction. So we've worked with Jeremy with planning, and then James Emmons has looked at it some too, and then the city attorney has reviewed the memorandum of understanding, and the Tippy Chapman board have passed it also.
So Brian, explain, when they come on, they will pay a capacity, an upfront fee. We don't have to worry about the amount of that right now, but it will be
Right.
based on a similar calculation to what the town of Winona Lake and Leesburg paid in the past.
Correct. So they'll tell us how much capacity they want to purchase, and I think when we were talking about this at one other point, think of it as a warehouse. You can buy 100,000 square feet in a 1 million square foot warehouse, and that's yours. And so that's essentially what they do. They'll buy 400,000 gallons of capacity in our treatment plant, and that will be set aside for them essentially. There are penalties if they want to buy 200,000 and they send us more than that, there's a surcharge for sending more than what they had asked for.
And then based on actual revenues, if you kind of do the math, I know there's been some numbers thrown around, but there's a pretty significant increase in revenue based on the economies of scale. We know what the rate could be if it's based on what we would certainly, the expectation would be the rate would be the same as what was charged to Winona and Leesburg. Obviously, there will be more costs, but the costs are not, as Jeff Rouse says, the costs are not linear with the amount of flow that we would treat. So we actually have the capacity to treat, other than the chemicals, and you tell them that.
Well, yeah, it's like anything else. Typically, the larger, the more efficient it is. And the state IDEM, they're not looking to permit a lot of small plants. They're harder to inspect, make sure they're compliant. Typically, they're not ran as well because it is a small, you probably have one person working at it. So we did get some favorable ratings when we went for our SRF loan, talking that we would maybe take them on. So that was looked highly upon from the state. So like the mayor said, it's not just because we take 100 gallons in, it's not going to cost us that much more to treat. It's a pretty consistent treatment at this point. And we are seeing some, I'm working on putting a presentation together, but we are seeing some significant electrical savings with this new plant that we built. So that's a real plus.
Brian, would you refresh my memory? It's, I remember going through all this in 2016 about them, Leesburg and Winona Lake back then, buying capacity, and they are actually buying into the system. They're not leasing into the system. They're not leasing space, to use your warehouse analogy.
I guess technically it could be a lease, because at the end of a 20-year contract agreement, if they were to choose to build their own treatment plant, we wouldn't give that money
We don't owe them
back.
anything.
That's not how the agreements are written.
Okay, because I was just wondering, since we've made all the upfront expenditures, would they be buying into that construction process, if you will, or that construction cost or the bond cost? But we're just charging them a lease flow rate.
That cost, Baker Tilly, sorry, they do review all of their bond costs and everything, and that's how that buy-in fee is determined.
Okay.
And then they will pay a treatment fee with the base fee for their meter and then the flow charge as
Okay.
everybody else in
They pay a
Warsaw.
wholesale rate.
Right.
I think it's $3.85 for 1,000 gallons right now. Is that correct?
I think so.
Yeah.
It's kind of like being a landlord, and then you can use the money to help pay your mortgage.
Right. Right.
So what, you say our current flow is what?
Roughly 3.5 million gallons a day.
3.5?
And are rated at 6.
Okay, the 6, and they're asking for 4, so that'd get us up to 3.9. That's just almost 66%. So we still got plenty of room after that. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's 5.9 becomes our new 90, or no, 5.4 becomes our new 90% point.
Questions?
I'll make a motion that we approve the MOU.
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, passes
you.
unanimously. Thank you,
Thank
Brian.
you.
All right. Item number 2 is a public hearing. This is similar to what we did last month. This is a tax abatement non-compliance waiver with Banner Medical. And this is similar discussion to last meeting. Same thing happened. You're required and we're required to have a public hearing to provide them a waiver, a compliance waiver, so that we can approve, if you wish, their CF1. So before I open it to the public, I'll ask if any of you have any questions.
Did they give a reason why they didn't comply?
I wish Jeremy was here to answer that.
Okay.
Chad Miller from Cates, Sapper and Miller, representing Banner Medical, is here.
Hi, council members. My name's Chad Miller. I'm with Katz Sapper Miller, a CPA firm down in Indianapolis where I do a lot of compliance filings. In this case, Banner Medical, they had a lot of employment turnover. Their CFO, their controller, they had some turnover right at the time that we were in filing season leading up to May 15th, and they were not experienced with the proper filings for Indiana to take advantage of the abatements. So they called me after I think the assessor reached out saying, hey, we didn't receive any of your paperwork. And I had to inform them, yeah, we do have a CF1 filing. It's due May 15th every year. We'll have to go through the non-compliance waiver with the council. So they've been timely. Their CFO that was there, he was there for a long tenure. And then whenever he left, right leading up to the 2021 filing season, I think it was either vacated for a little while, the CFO in the controller position, before they got someone in. And then once they got someone in, now they're trying to clean everything up. So that's the reasoning behind the missing of the compliance filing.
We've heard that story before.
Yeah.
Not unusual.
I think this is like their 5th year, so they have been
Right. Yes.
great about it. Just, that's why I was surprised, because, yeah.
And thus far, we've always given a pass.
Yes. That's
First
good.
offense.
We've always been given a good reason.
Yep. Yeah, that happens. I get it. I get it.
I move we continue the tax
We've got
abatement.
to
Oh, I'm
open this
sorry.
up to the public,
All right,
but I want to
I'm
make
sorry.
sure you all had a chance to ask questions before
Will
we
you
do
be
that.
doing this for them from now on? Will they retain you to take care of these things?
I will be, yes.
Okay.
We had done them in the years past as well under the prior CFO.
Yeah.
And then it was just that turnover. We weren't able to get to the right person but yes, I will be taking care of it annually going forward.
So when you leave, make sure your replacement,
Definitely.
It doesn't quite work that way. It's like, "No, I'm gone, I'm gone."
Thanks.
thank you.
All right, thank you.
Jeff.
All right. Any further questions before we open the hearing up to the public? All right, is there anyone here wishing to speak on behalf of the petitioner requesting the noncompliance waiver? Anyone wishing to speak on behalf of, and we've heard from their representative, obviously. Okay. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of granting the noncompliance waiver? All right, hearing none, I'll close the public hearing portion of the meeting and throw it back to the council.
I move we continue the tax abatement on personal property for Banner Medical.
And I'll second it.
I think you have to move that the noncompliance waiver be approved.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Now you can move to do the.
Yeah, I think we actually last month, or the last meeting, it was all in one vote, but if you wish to go through and approve the CF1, I'm
So the waiver's now approved, now I can move to?
Yep.
Okay. I move to continue the tax abatement on personal property for Banner Medical.
all right.
Thanks, Mayor.
I'll
I'll
second.
second that.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, great, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
All right.
Aren't you glad we didn't debate you as long?
All right, let's move into our budget presentations. Hal will ask you to go first with the cemetery. Ask you all to pull your budget books out.
Normal budget's 205, if that's where you're heading. Yes, Jeff. Do we need to wait for Jeff to get back? Or we-
He said he'd be right back, so go ahead.
Okay. Basically, the 205, since I'm first, I guess I'll start with all, you're going to hear about a lot of the same. Wage salaries were offered to us at 3.5%. That's what you see, and then salary and wages. And my employee benefits, it went up, not as much as what we did due to some factors of changing with some of my employees in funding. Some of that may change too, because I have one of my workers' wives is now working for somebody else that will have insurance. That'll drop a little bit too also. Operating supplies you see went up, that's 22. Basically, I'm just protecting fuel. I didn't know what fuel was going to be next year, too sure, and so I upped that up. It's the standard. The big drop you're going to see, and I think with most, is 32. That's what the mayor was alluding to, where it's going to come out of the council as far as the IT and all that stuff is there. We were told to drop down there. We kept a little in just for whatever we might need. Once we get used to this, then more of that may go away. Fleet insurance went up for Lynn. She told me to go up 20 or 26% there. I'm sorry, 7%, forgive me, wrong line. Everything else, utilities and everything been running fine. You go into machinery and equipment, actually down 9%. Once again, thank you to the street department. The street department mechanics take care of my stuff. They're actually right now rebuilding 2 of my dump trucks, which saves the cost of me buying new. So that's why you see that down. So overall budget in that one is actually down 2%. It went from 761,985 to 746,167. Any questions?
Nice.
If there's no question there, my other one is 624. Basically, and the new is more is I've got a cold storage unit. That'd be a building to put outside stuff basically under weather. It makes it last longer. Originally, we were going to go bigger. We've cut that down in size. It wasn't done this year due to quotes and stuff. The gentleman that was going to bid it for me could only get a 3-day quote on material and not positive he would get the material. So we thought if we waited another year, things may calm down and the supply would be up some more. So we're dropping it to a smaller building, so I'm estimating 50,000 for that. I have in there for asphalt, once again, that's Dustin at the street department. His crew comes in and helps me asphalt, which saves us money. I have 30,000 in for that. The other thing is we've been doing some stone work. I've dropped down, I have a little more stone work I need to do around the office because of the terrain block. As you can see, that went down 4% from 136.5 to 131. Now, depending on investment with Lynn, I may not be able to do all that. We invest in 2 blocks of money for this perm account, and we watch it, and if it's not there, of course, I don't spend it. We tie it up every year, or every so many years, and we just have tied it up again the second batch, if you want to call the money. So I've been using quite a bit on these, so it depends what I bring in, if I'll be able to do all this, just so you know, it's just an investment thing. We try to invest long term to make more money. So we currently are investing, it's 425,000 to 1,475 in another, in that current account, besides what we take in. So we're just kind of watching it. I've been doing a lot of improvements, and if I don't have it, of course, I won't do it. So that is my 624.
Questions? All right.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Al. All right. Larry? Hal did make a comment on 320. That's where a lot of those IT appropriations were being spent out of the individual departments. They've all been transferred to the council budget, as you'll see, to centralize that. And we'll talk about that, but there will, each department reduced the amount that they were spending on those items, and that's all gone that's why you'll see the big jump in the council, but every other department has reduced. And I think how yours was about 14,000. Yeah. So that's 320. Okay, Parks and Recs is 204.
204, operating budget. We all good? There again, reflects the 3.5% increase on wages, and, I think it's critical to commit to a wage that will retain our skilled employees. That's been my concern all along, is that we have a wage that's there to retain our carpenters, our mechanics, our electricians, things of that sort. So I think that's very important, and I'm happy to see some increase in there. Insurance and everything in here, we're at an 11% increase on the total personal services, $1,780,000 on that.
So again, just to note, all departments were asked to increase their health insurance budget by 12%.
12%.
Past, we've done 15, and we've been able to hold those down. Last year was close to zero.
Yeah.
And we've been very fortunate with our claims experience. So this year, we did drop down that ask for all departments to 12%.
Have we had lower claims so far this year?
And we're doing fine this year so far. And the rates will be set probably, the underwriting committee will get together later this month, and the rates will be set probably towards the beginning of October. So we'll certainly know before we dive into the final approval of the budget.
Then we moved to supplies. Our office supplies, we're holding the line there, 0% increase. Operating supplies, we've raised that $3,000 just simply because, we're paying $10 for a 2x4 that was $3, and OSB that was $10, we're paying $60. So we put a little more money in there. That's probably not enough, but we're hoping prices come back down. So that reflects the 3% increase there in operating supplies. Repair and maintenance, the big ticket item in here is $100,000 to resurface the Pike Lake parking lot. That was done back when Kim Lake was a superintendent. Dustin we've talked, and he will use his crew and paver. So this is basically the $100,000 for the material. So to do an in-house project there. So that increases the total in that by 61%, but that is the $100,000 there for the resurfacing. Other supplies, that stayed the same. That's just $300 for snow removal meals if we need it again. So overall, the increase was 33% in total supplies due to the $100,000 paving project. Professional services, this is a 20% decrease this year, and that's due to our 5-year master plan that we're doing this year will not be in there, and that was $15,300, so that's taken out. That's the reason for the decrease. Communications and transportation, of course, this is an 84% decrease because of the council taking over those internets, all the stuff there. And I will say a comment on the IT department. Having BIT available has helped our department tremendously. Before, we were afraid to call BIT because of the fee. We just couldn't afford him with our budget. Since that happened, I probably used Brady more in 3 weeks than I used him in 3 years. So it's nice to have that person out there that we can reach out to, and he's there. I mean, we call him and he's right on the phone, or he's right there to us. So that has been a big plus for us. So printing and advertising, we're the same there. Insurance, we're going to stay the same there. I feel we're okay. Utilities, 0% increase. We're going to watch the plaza area, the new interactive fountain pump, and the street lights through there. We'll watch that for 2023, but I think we'll be okay there. Repairs and maintenance, pretty much the same here. The only thing that's in there is the
Central Park East Shelter to raise the curb and the asphalt. The curb lines have sunk about a foot over the years. We did the Indiana Street parking lot last year. They raised that, resurfaced that. We're due to have the west parking lot done in August, late August. So this would be the last parking lot at Central Park on that side to be finished. So that's the increase. 47% increase is just due to the $40,000 there. Rentals, that's the same. Other services and charges, no increase there. So overall, other services and charges, 2% decrease. Then we get to capital outlays. Something we didn't have our budget last year is the park buildings. As you know, we would like to move forward with our park office and maintenance building. We were asked to put $100,000 in there as possible, a mortgage payment over 10 years. So I've stuck that in there. We get to machinery and equipment, pretty much same thing as trucks, our Bobcat, equipment at Rarick Park, our riding mower, and then something we've added in there is we've applied for a $250,000 DNR grant for the Manna Skate Park at Richardson Du Bois, which was part of our stellar process. In that, we have to have a match of $250,000. We have $150,000 from K-21. We have $6,000 of other donated funds, but we needed $92,000 to make that match. We feel if this is awarded, we will have time to go out and get some more match for that, but we have to show proof in that grant that we have the money, so that's why that's in there. We should know by October whether we get that grant or not, so that's why that's in there. So that's 100%, 120% increase, and that's due to the building payment and the skate park relocation. So overall, my total budget is 13% increase, but that's due to the four big projects I've listed here: the Pike Lake parking lot, $100,000; the payment for the new office garage, $100,000; the skate park relocation, $92,000; and personal services up $109,000. So if there's any questions on that.
Larry, I have one question. Last year, you had a pickup truck replacement cost for a 2003 pickup truck, and I see you got a pickup truck replacement this year, too. Is that a different truck?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Every year in our 10-year maintenance plan, we try to replace a vehicle. That way, and our trucks are 10 years old when we replace them.
Okay.
Yep.
Something I might add, I asked Larry to put that 100,000 in there as potential installment payment. You know, we've talked earlier about the BOT process for building the new maintenance facility and parks office. We're in the process right now of getting information on that. We'll actually be meeting yet this week. Financing is a part of that, which is advantageous. So we do have the opportunity to do installment contracts on that, which is why I asked him to put some funds in there. So you'll be hearing more about that project soon. If you remember from the BOT process, if we are happy with where they're at, we bring that here for a public hearing, and you all dive into that, and we basically get a guaranteed maximum price. Don't have to pay anything up front until we get the keys, and then the financing is all a part of that as well. So just a little update on that.
Thanks.
And to add to that, I really feel that's crucial. I think you all know how I feel about that, but that's crucial to get us all back together, to be back at Central Park where we can communicate with our staff daily. Being separated has been hard on all of us, so I surely hope that comes through. Yep.
And the park board did approve this unanimously.
Yes, absolutely.
Other questions?
Yeah, that Manus skate park relocation, the $92,000 there, you say that it's possible that you're going to be getting more funds that are going to be...
We will go out and try to raise more funds for that. Jack, it just hit us at the wrong time. When COVID was out there, there was just a lot of people that were just shutting down, and they weren't making donations.
So it's very possible that
we anticipate. Yeah.
That part of it might even go away.
Yes.
And if we don't get the grant, it'll go away.
Yeah.
We'll have to
Right,
do,
yeah.
we'll have
If we
to
don't
do
get the
some
grant.
repairs on the current one, but
Right.
it won't be that much, yeah.
We're to a point now where our skate park out there, the ramps are 15 years old, and the framing underneath them are, I mean, they're rotten. I mean, we go out and replace a board to keep the screws in it. I mean, that's where we're at with it. So we're going to have to do something one way or another, but that's in there basically to make that grant, to that match to that grant, so. Yeah.
When will you find out?
October, I believe it is. Yeah.
Good luck.
All right. Next.
All right, I got the 211 budget, non-reverting. This is the budget for all of our activities, supplies. For example, we just had the family carnival last Friday night. Those funds will go back into here so we can have another family carnival. So the only thing that's changed in this budget, we've added $1,000 to the operating supplies and other supplies just because costs are going up and we expand our programs a little bit. We'll have a little extra money in there. The total in this budget as of the end of July was $43,427.03. So we're asking to budget $20,350 out of that. So less than 50% of what's there.
Questions? Diane, I assume the park board approved that?
Yes, and just a note to remind everybody, this is we charge fees for things and get donations and stuff too, so that's why there's money in that fund, and then we spend some of it out of it each year, and then money comes back into it. So this is just for expending to get the programs in place.
Yeah, the funds that we get from these programs goes back into this fund, and we have to have it budgeted. It's not like we can charge a fee and turn around and cash it right back out.
Right.
So,
Larry, I assume the revenues will hopefully increase this year with
yes.
more
Oh, I
activities
think
from
so,
last
yeah.
year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all of our revenues have increased, building-wise, delivery-wise.
Rentals.
Yeah, we
programs,
already
everything.
took steps
Yeah.
to do that, so.
Do rentals go in this?
They do not go in this one.
Okay,
They go
In what?
in our next one.
next one. All right.
In our 403 fund, that's our non-reverting fund. Those are revenue generated. They used to be from the Nye cabin and the fireman's building. Those are our two rentals there. That's where those went into. As you know, we've got the grant to have the kayak kiosks at Center and Pike Lake. That was a $29,660 grant that we got from the KCC RVC committee. We've got those ordered. Everything's in place for those. We're just waiting on the shipment. We're probably another 60 days out for that. But in finding that, I got with Scott and asked him if that revenue from these kiosks could go into this 403 budget. And we looked at the ordinance, and absolutely. So what we'd like to do is out of that budget, not only be able to replace what we have in these kiosks when they're damaged or need replacing, but we would also like to be able to purchase another kiosk to put beside these for our paddle boards. We have the paddle boards. We have 10 paddle boards. We have the paddles. We have the life jackets and everything. So basically, all we're buying is the lockers themselves and the Bluetooth activation. So I think this is something we've looked at in our master plan for several years, not only 5 years. I think it goes back as far as 10 years. And it's finally coming to fruition, having this, and we'd like to build upon that. So we put the $30,000 in here, not only for the repairs, but also to put an additional kiosk there for our paddle boards. That account, as in the end of July, had $76,472.19 in it. So we're asking to put $30,000 in there for that. So.
Great. Questions? All right.
And that came out, we just got the report on the 5-year master plan, and that came out that was something the public was really interested in.
Yes, absolutely.
So-
Yeah, I think every master plan we did for the last 2 or 3 has just been all about water activities and using the natural resources that we have. So fit right in. We have a nice canoe launch right from the shoreline stabilization at Pike Lake, and our kiosks will sit right there, and they can just take them right down and go. So it's all worked together with stormwater and everything. So
It's going to be popular.
yeah, it will be.
Very popular.
Yep.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Chief? He's coming up. You can flip to his budget. I think that's,
It's tab number 6.
6, right.
So we'll start with the general budget?
Yeah.
All right. So with 2021 to 2022, obviously the mid-year pay increase made a significant impact in the 2022 budget, in addition to the budgeted 3.5%. So salaries is going to be the obvious largest increase in the police budget for 2022 from 2021's, with an increase of $334,500. The additional increase, significant increase in salaries, personal services, is going to include the pension. Last year, in the 2021 budget, the pension contributions from the pension fund was $450,000. That's reduced this year to $247,574. So with that, personal services is a total increase of 14%. So an increase of nearly $600,000. In addition to that, meeting with the wage committee, it was, I guess, recommended or understood that this budget would include some incentives, pay incentives for specialty positions and specialty certifications, specialty pay for the additional activities and participation by our officers. And I made note, obviously, in the budget explanatory sheet to discuss, but those include firearms, taser instructor, dive team member, ERT members, emergency vehicle operations instructor, accident reconstructionist, evidence clerk, forensic technician, emergency vehicle operation instructor, and the DEER Task Force administrative assistant. The increase of the special incentive pay is being factored in for this budget at approximately at $13,500. This also would include in this budget under overtime is being included for the purpose of pay incentive for field training officers, and we factored in $6,000 for that purpose. And that would allow $25 per day for a field training officer while instructing in field training our new officers that we expect to be hiring over the next several months.
Chief, you might make mention, oh, I'm sorry, I see the pension down here. I'm sure you're getting to that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Any questions with the personal services? Next category is supplies. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to mention the pension, how that shook down this year. Remember, last year there was no pension expense because there was money available in that pension fund, and this year we capped it out based on the formula and the statute that governs the use of those pension funds.
Correct. Yeah, last year was $450,000. This year, we, based upon the numbers provided by the clerk's office, we're able to only budget for $247,574. The remainder of those pension contributions will be paid from the pension fund, which is the pension budget, which we'll discuss later.
So of that 14% increase, of the 600,000, it's about 200,000 was from that, 247,000 from the pension.
How many sworn officers are there currently?
32. So obviously, this budget is budgeted for 42, which would be our full capacity that we've yet to ever get to. Any other questions? Moving to supplies, the only major increase in supplies is going to be fuel. At the time of the budget this year, did not have the exact dollar amount. We did enter into an agreement with Lassus Brothers for $2.57 per gallon. Also, factored in additional gallons, and it was truly an estimate. Just expecting to have additional fuel usage for officers driving their vehicles for personal use or while off duty. So the total increase of 367,500, I'm sorry, not total increase of 357, but a total increase of 66,000, so 22%. Moving on to other services and charges. You'll note in this section, as the mayor hit on with going into an agreement, contractual agreement with BIT and then the governance committee, some of the items have been removed. And I made notes concerning what those items were to help you understand those being removed from the budget. And I believe it totaled somewhere in the neighborhood of about $50,000. One new item I'll make note of under professional services is the Net 43. In working with the prosecutor and the Sheriff Dukes, is the expectation that we'll enter into a financial agreement that will help the unit from a operational standpoint. We do provide the unit with obviously officers and manpower and other means of financial assistance, but this would be a contractual agreement for $5,000 for the daily operational expenses. And I think I gave you the total, but the total was $383,500, which is a decrease of $35,700. Machinery and equipment. Based upon current staffing, we're pursuing 5 patrol vehicles this year. 4 of those we purchased out of the general fund. The 5th will be mentioned later out of the forfeiture fund. Estimating those vehicles to be, approximately $35,000. But I've also made note of the years, over the last 11 years, the purchase of the vehicles, the number of vehicles we have purchased. But the overall equipment budget, we're making a sound effort to reduce the budget, or offset the budget, not reduce, but offset the budget with the revenue account, which is, I'll hit on, and then the forfeiture fund. But overall, the decrease in equipment was $23,500, and the total budgeted estimate for the police budget for 2022 is $5,905,130. And that is an increase of 11.37%, or $602,000.
Scott, can we go back to the personal services?
Sure.
On the incentives, you have the administrative assistant, DTF. Did you say DEER task force or drug task force?
DEER task force.
Okay.
Mr. Gross, that was your
Yeah.
recommendation.
For the past 15 years, we have been asking the police department to do countless things for us, volunteering. And I already have a handful of volunteers, as you know, that don't get any pay. In fact, I've been talking to some of them today. I'll be getting ready for our presentation for this year, probably our next council meeting as we head into the end of August. But it was thought to look that direction finally after 15 years and all the work that's been done by the police department. So that's what that's for.
Chief, I don't know how difficult it is, but in the past, and I don't think we did it last year because of COVID, you've given us a little breakdown as to the years of the vehicles and the mileage and everything.
Yes, and I can
Is that doable?
Yes, I've been working on that. I actually have it pretty much updated. I can get that out to you
Okay.
this week.
Yeah, that helps a lot.
Okay.
What else?
I was just going to say, just to note, we have to remember when we get that report that you have to make a distinction between what the vehicle is used for.
Right.
Because the higher, if it's you say it, you're better at it, but a detective vehicle's not going to be the same as a vehicle doing
Right,
out
there's
doing the
certainly
pursuit.
different costs associated with the equipment for those vehicles, but
And the mileage.
correct. But I believe when I give you the information, it shows marked and unmarked, and so typically marked means it's a patrol vehicle.
It was always really clear cut before, I think.
All right, we can move on.
I didn't get 231 in my book. Are we missing it, or am I just missing a 231 tab?
I don't have 231 either.
No.
It might be towards the back, because some of the
Yeah,
budgets
it's in
came
the
in
back.
late.
Yeah, it's on the back,
We already
Oh,
have the
okay, there it
tabs
is.
ordered.
way
so
back.
There's gotta be some that are in the back. Sorry, they're not absolutely ordered. Just gotta look at the tabs.
Is that the next one, Scott?
Yeah,
231? Is that the one you want to do next?
The lock continuing ed?
it's your forfeiture.
Which one do you want to do?
Forfeiture? Okay. Well, I do, yeah, forfeiture 290. We'll do forfeiture, that's fine.
231, way in the back.
There, I didn't look far enough, right?
And 220's behind that, so there's one.
Okay, so now I'm better, because I was marking down what I was missing. I'm like, where is that?
All right, so the 2022 police forfeiture, this is obviously a revenue-driven account. So the budget is based upon the current funds that we have in that, it's budgeted with the current funds that we currently have in the forfeiture fund. So this has allotted us the ability, we had an auction, a sheriff's sale with seized and forfeited property earlier this year, and so we ended up having funds. And with that, we're going to purchase police car equipment, in-car video camera, and one police vehicle. That total will be $45,300. Any questions about the forfeiture fund budget?
All right.
Are we,
233 is your lock and continuing ed. That should be in the proper order.
okay.
Did you say block continuing at 233?
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's in 230,
It
it's
said-
between 232 or 231 or 234.
I'm fixing it so I don't get mixed up again.
It's where it should be, not in the back.
Then to law continuing education, the much smaller amount, the revenues have decreased, but we have made vehicle purchases in the past. This year, we were able to still provide some supplemental training funds, and then purchase the equipment of 3 in-car video cameras for 3 of those 5 police commissions we'll be purchasing. That total budget is $22,500.
And the reason the funding's going down for that is because of the handgun permits and the new legislation that there's no charge for handgun permits. And we're getting, is it $10 permit or some permits more, like a lifetime?
It's roughly $9,500 a year.
Well, I know, but how much were you getting per license?
Right. Yeah, it depends on if it's,
Okay.
annual or lifetime. But we have been afforded the opportunity to basically certify those funds for 2020, which just received those numbers today. So tomorrow I'll likely be submitting that to the ICJI, the
Indiana Criminal Justice Institute is reimbursing for those that.
For
we can't
reimbursement,
collect, right.
And so I'm not real sure how that's going to work. I'm assuming that would offset this budget, but and that'd be almost 10,000 out of the training and communications.
It's a grant.
Yeah, it's a grant. Any questions with law continuing ed? And the last budget I have is the police pension fund.
802. Which is 802.
It's not the
802.
last one. Does this budget include our anticipated retirements?
No. No,
Okay.
this fund only monitors the old plan. So those that
Oh,
prior to,
pre-
the funds prior to 1977 Police and
Got
Fire
it.
Pension Fund.
Okay.
So that therefore, the beneficiaries, I believe we're down to 8 beneficiaries. That includes
Spouses and
spouses as well, yes.
disabled children, okay.
Yeah, ours is currently just the actual beneficiary and then their spouse. But so this fund is, The biggest change is going to be the amount that we are taking out of this budget to pay towards the police officers' pensions, the city's contributions for the police officers' fund, the pension fund. So if you look at under employee benefits, in 2021, it was $458,000. So that's how much we actually had in the budget, in the police general budget. That number is now changed again to $269,000, which is obviously a huge reduction. So that $269,000 is being used to offset the general fund for the purpose of purchasing or paying for the contributions for the pension on behalf of the city.
So again, last year, the regular budget benefited that $458,000. That was an expense that the city didn't have to pick up. And is it 16% of the salary? Is that the city's pension?
17.5%.
17.5% is a pension contribution that normally comes out of the police budget. Last year, didn't have to pay anything, and that saved that budget, that $458,000. This year, it's down to $269, and this will more than likely be the last time we'll be able to spend money out of that pension budget, just simply because of the way the statute regulates how these pension funds can be used. So it did benefit some.
Yes. Yes, sir. So the total budget estimate for 802 is $558,048.
Does that all make sense about that pension? Okay. All right, any questions, final questions for Chief? Okay. All right, thank you. Dustin?
Let's start with number 8.
As Dustin makes his way to the podium, flip to
First time.
tab number 8.
Yes, as you've heard, salaries and wages was a 3.5% increase. That's our increase there. We have added another line item for 3 additional employees. We've been in the works working with Jennifer, the wage committee. I know there's some others going to be involved on, especially with the city engineer and our wastewater teammates as well, on creating kind of a joint crew, which these 3 individuals would work with us at the street department, but also work, part-time for wastewater as well. So that was the increase there. As far as employee benefits, there's a 12% insurance increase. Your other personal services with cell phones, mechanicals, your mechanics tool allowance, no changes there. Overall, 12% increase in personal services. That, again, a lot of that was due to the additional employees. Questions there? Okay, moving on, the office supplies stay the same. Our operating supplies, as far as oil, fuel, antifreeze, everything to keep us moving down the road, no changes there. Repair and maintenance supplies, no changes again. Our meals for emergency workers stayed the same as well. So not much change there. Our other services and charges, our professional service, we did have a 43% increase. A lot of these projects we're doing are bigger. We can still do the work in-house. We still have, more than enough talent to get the work done. Just a little more engineering and a little more practicality going involved to make sure we're taking the correct steps. So we have put a significant increase there. Again, part of that money is aimed at a pretty good, significant size project that's going on next year, but we'll get to that here a little later. Communication, transportation, that was down 34%, it's down to $25,000, mainly due to the tech committee and everything that we're pulling back into that budget. Our utilities and services stayed the same. Repairs and maintenance, everything stayed the same right there as far as what we're using. Rentals, again, $75,000, no change. We did up our landfill just a smidge. I think just in the last 4 months, we've probably, passed out close to 25 new homes with new trash cans and stuff, so Warsaw's growing, so a little bit of increase there. Same on the recycling contract. Our software was changing to moving all this IT stuff. We're down a little bit there with a significant cut. In order to our capital outlays, we do have a list of 2 plow trucks in there, a small payloader, 2 small dump trucks. It's 2 zero-turn lawn mowers. This is, again, we usually have a 3-year warranty on our mowers. This is the 3rd season. We'll update those, keep them under warranty. Equipment trailer, a rear load garbage truck, which is actually something that we're going to probably switch around a little bit. And then a digital sign printer. This is something that we've wanted for several years. This has the ability to make our own wraps, everything for our own vehicles instead of, we're putting that off and paying somebody outside to do that. For those of you who don't know, we just buy the sign blanks. We make all the signs right in-house. Saves us some significant dollars. This is just a little more advanced machine. You can literally plug it in, type in what you want. I want 50 stop signs. You go home for the night, you come back, and there's 50 stop signs printed, ready to be, cut out and made. So it's just a little more efficient product. Do you want me to elaborate on that garbage truck deal, or just?
Yeah, I think you should.
Okay. So we'd put in the budget last year, or for next year, for a rear load garbage truck. What we're going to run through Board of Works, this next Board of Works next Friday, is we're going to go ahead and purchase a rear load garbage truck this year. We have money in the budget that was set for larger plow trucks, which we cannot get. Kind of like everything anymore. You can't get a pickup truck, you can't get anything due to these computer chips. I came across an opportunity with the rear load garbage truck, the same dealer that we've been working with. They had a stock truck that is brand new, that is available now, that we can get and have within the next 2 to 3 weeks, most likely. If we wait until January and we order this garbage truck, it's going to be probably mid to 2024. They're about an 18-month lead time to get out. So this is something that's, and I appreciate the mayor supporting it, is not a, it's not a shell game by any means. It's kind of working smart, because if you're going to wait 18 months to get something that we needed now, we just put $8,000 worth of new tippers on the back of it, and brake chambers are rusted and have holes in it now. This is a 2009 truck. We've been using it for 12 years, so it's replace it while we have the opportunity, and continue to provide a better service. So that was all on general budget for a total of 5.674 million. They're about a 7.5%, just under a 7.5% increase.
Questions? I know several of you have been down to see Dustin, and I know he appreciates having the time to sit down and explain how difficult it is at times for him to get done what he needs to get done. I appreciate your work, Dustin. Any other questions on this budget?
The only thing I would say is just it's so fun to hear all the other departments refer to the street department's doing this for us, the street department's doing that for us. And I just really appreciate the level of expertise that you brought your guys up to and the experience you're giving them. You're saving us a bundle of money.
Well, they definitely, it's fun. It's fun to work with the other point. We got a great staff down there with a lot of talents, but you're right, Diane, I think they owe me a few, don't they?
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah, I would ditto that, because in talking to different department heads and everything, we just hear so much good information about the cooperation.
Quick update on the paper bags.
Paper bags is going very well. We made up some flyers. I don't know if any of you passing through the street have seen them or not, but if somebody is using plastic bags, they get a big, bright, fluorescent tag on the bags, and many of them carry them in. But they all seem to understand that I have not had anybody upset about the use of it. Many of them say this is a great idea. I'm glad we're doing this. It makes sense. So it's busy. Yeah, we don't leave much for lunch. We keep somebody there at all times because it seems like the door is constantly coming in.
I
So.
talked to the guys that had been having to cut open those paper bags, and they're not.
Oh, they absolutely
They're
love
not
it.
near
I
as
mean,
busy
Yeah.
doing that.
Typically, they were running till, especially on Monday and Fridays, the way our trash routes are set up currently, Monday and Friday are our two biggest days by a significant portion, and a lot of that is just the travel time. But they were usually around 2:30 to 3 o'clock before they could finish their route. With this paper bag thing, it's usually around 1 o'clock that I'm getting a phone call, what do you want me to do now? You know, where are we at? So, you know, to not have to cut 200 bags a day open by hand, and it's huge. It's been a great help, so thank you for helping us get that done. So,
All right, where do you want to go next?
200.
let's go to 200.
200 wheel tax?
Yeah, wheel tax, we'll do a crazy thing and go in order. So wheel tax, we have some increases here. And you're gonna see quite a bit of increases from these state-funded budgets. The biggest reason for that is last year when we did budgets, when I was preparing budgets for my very first time, they were expecting all the data that we were getting was a 40% or 46% decrease in the money that we were gonna take in. So those numbers reflected on 2022 versus 2019 or 2020 aren't as significant as they were last year for that reason. But anyway, we'll jump through it and we'll kind of explain it as we go. But repair and maintenance supplies, this is just everything we're buying for us to do the work, and those 230s, $150,000 there, no change. Do we get down into the 360s with repair and maintenance performed by others? Contractors coming in, we did double that, so we're up to $350,000. Again, in our wheel tax fund, we had a significant number, a surplus back that we had held back or that had came in last year. This is money that is seen a drastic increase with the numbers over the years. We got numbers back from 2018, 19, 20, just to see a pattern of what's going on. It grows every year. There's more vehicles, you know, getting registered every season. So that was mainly our reason for that. So part of this project or this $350,000, we're going to look at doing a couple of different community crossings grant projects next year. We have the Hodges Phase 2 and Phase 3 that we're going to shoot for potentially, as long as we get that grant funding awarded. So that's where a significant portion of that money would go. So,
Questions? All right. MVH 201.
Yeah, so again, a small increase here. Again, was just, you know, a little bit lighter last year. We have $150,000 in, you know, operating supplies. This is mainly what we use for our road salt and icing liquids, things like that, of what we buy. We dropped that down a little bit. We're sitting pretty good after this year. And again, what I kind of explained to some of the council members that stopped by is we're trying to budget for the year prior, or the year coming, I guess. So using funding from the year prior to get there. So repairs and maintenance is, again, us doing the work, the materials we need to get things done, $30,000 there. Our street signs and whatnot, we did drop down to $20,000. We're sitting very well on that material and stuff like that. It does have a shelf life, so it does no good to just buy stuff and let it set. So we have cut a little bit, you know, dropped a little bit there. Our increase, our 360s, $150,000. We cut out just a line item as, you know, specifically for paint striping. That is included in that $150,000. We are going to, you know, continually do paint striping, but I didn't see a reason to have it spelled out on a specific line item for, it all comes out of the same account. So again, up 16%, $350,000 out of MVH.
All right, questions?
So it looks like you're planning on doing a lot of striping next year?
No, that's, that $150,000 is our repair and maintenance with doing other contract, micro seal, crack seal, anything else that comes in along with paint striping. That is not $150,000 of just paint striping.
Dustin, would you explain your limitation on how you can spend MVH money? I think it was.
MVH is not any limits on MVH.
Well, the other, okay, as we get to the other one, but the state did allow for a little bit better mix of being able to do, instead of 50/50, I think it's 60/40. Is that
Is
correct?
it now?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that update.
Okay.
You know, Joe, I looked for that, because when I was doing revenue, I was trying to figure that out too, and I know they talked about it, but I didn't see any of the legislation.
passed
where
through?
they passed, yeah.
I haven't seen where it's passed. What he's referring to is your MVH fund and your MVH restricted funds have to match on the bottom line 50/50. So you have to use the same materials or the same amount of money for both budgets. You can mix it any way you want, although on the restricted account, it has to be just materials that go into road work specifically. You cannot use it to buy equipment, you can't use it to pay an employee, you can't use it to buy a road sign, because that is not bituminous material going into the road. So it's very limited on what you can spend that
I'm
on.
sorry, I got a little head, because that's 203. You want to go to 202 LRS first?
Yeah, we'll go to 202. In here, 230 supply, or 230s, this is us doing work. This is our guys going out and making the city pretty. $150,000 out of this account is going to be reflected back into us doing the work in ourselves. In our 360 count is $200,000 out of this fund. Again, it's going towards some of these bigger projects that we have in mind. That one's a $350,000. We had 125 funded last year. Again, that was just a typical year is about 250. So we took in a lot more than that. So we're pulling a lot more out of it again, out of the savings and stuff to use for some of these bigger projects. So.
Questions on LRS 202? All right, now to 203, the MVH restricted.
So again, it has to match our MVH funds, so it does. It's a $350,000. This year for 2022, we are going to put all $350,000 in that 360 contractor work. What we are going to try, and we have a contract going through Board of Works next Friday on some preliminary engineering, as well as getting things up to 30%. For phase 2 and phase 3 of Hodges. Now, depending on whether or not we definitely get those grants, we'll apply in January. We'll know sometime mid-April whether or not we get both of those, whether we get one, whether we get both. Then we'll go forward with how we're going to attack that. But that is our goal, which should be around a $1.6 million project, give or take, an approximate. So you're looking at about $800,000, hopefully, of grant money, potentially, if awarded. So,
Questions? All right, Dustin, thanks.
thank you all.
Sure appreciate all you're doing. Lynn, you're next.
I'm next, and I'm number 4 for my general budget. Can I read that, please? Like everybody else is up. So, my wages, with the 1.5% increase plus overtime, the change was 2.27 overall. But remember, ours are split 3 ways between fire territory, wastewater, and general budget. So that's why it just reflects that 2.27, because it's the 3% split, or the 3.33 split plus the $3,000 for overtime. Everything else, and that went up a little bit according to the wages, and the health and vision went down a little bit because I tried to true things up. And so I might have not put my health in there, but yes, I did. So it reflects the 12% raise too. So that, my total change in personal services was 1.2%. In my office supplies and operating supplies, it went down a little bit due to the centralization of some things, so that was a 15.38% down change. Professional services, it's pretty much the same. I had budgeted a little less because of some of the stuff going into the council, so that total category had a percent droppage of 27.61%. Equipment, I just looked at the last couple of years to see what I bought, and I think I can get by with the $12,000, so that was a 20% decrease, so I overall have a 7.7% decrease in that budget.
Questions? All right, I think you got one more?
Two more.
Two more.
CCI, I think is next. No, general bond, 307. Which the general bond, as you recall, is for the fire station too. And there's not much I can do on that because it's pretty much obligated depending on what the payments are and what the paying agent fee was. So total budget for that is $260,700. And then the next one would be the CCI. This is what is used mostly right now for bike trails. It's the same amount as it was last year, $75,000. And I think Justin, I'm sorry, is planning on using some of that money for restriping all the bike paths and everything along that's already been striped, which probably won't eat up that much, but it'll just go back into the fund what's not used.
Questions? All right. That'd be my turn. So if you want to go to the mayor's budget, tab 1. Typically go off my explanation sheet. You'll see that with the increases, our personal services was up 9%, but I do want to point out an error. The second line that lists the communications director's salary at $66,000, it's actually $5,000 less than that. So there was an error on that. That should be $61,685. And I imagine the perf and FICA will probably be impacted a little bit as well, but it'll be less than that. So we're probably just under 9%. And again, that's taken into account the 3.5% increase. I did have, if you remember last year, $80,000 in for this IT director. It was going to be split up 40% in our department, and of course we took that out. So that's gone. The administrative assistant was sharing with the HR, and we're moving her into the mayor's office because of the amount of work that's obviously continuing. So she now is within our budget. And then you'll see the medical insurance with 12% increase. Again, that's 1/2 that all the insurances. So 9% increase. Supplies stay the same. Again, with the centralization of communications, 320 shows a decrease, 48%. So overall, the 300s are down 35%. Capital outlays, I decreased machinery equipment a couple thousand. So total budget is just up 5%. Mayor's budget is up 5% from 234 to 246, about $12,000. And a lot of that has to do with bringing Whitney back into the mayor's office. Questions? All right, let's dive into the council budget. This is the one where we're going to see those increases. Hold on just a second, I got some.
Oh, it's tab 5.
Okay. All right. So again, I typically draw your attention back to the explanatory sheets. We'll look at a 3.5% expected increase for council members based on the across the board 3.5% medical insurance increase. It's actually 12%, but the amount that was in there last year had not been reduced by what we didn't spend. So it really, it's only showing a 4%, 4.7% increase, but it's actually 12% from what was actually spent last year. So total changes in personal services was 4.9%, which again is reflective of the 3.5% and the 12% medical insurance increase. Office supplies are pretty much as is, kept it at 4,300. Let's go back to contracts on the third page here, and we'll go down through the nonprofit contract, the requests, and then we'll go down through the council contracts. I know, Cindy, you've been working hard on these non-for-profit requests. What I've done is listed those there. I did put the amount of the general fund 2021 budget and took 1.5% of that at your all's direction to cap out what we used for nonprofit requests, and it gives you a total maximum of $192,747. So right now, the requests exceed that by about $36,000. So I have some work to do there. I did talk to Cindy a little bit about with ARPA money coming in, if there's requests from some of these not-for-profits that were COVID-related. As you'll see in my final budget tonight, there has been some money set aside for that as well. And I think the thing to think about is how we're going to administer those funds. I know it's a lot of work and a lot of pressure on this committee. Excuse me, but it's something we got plenty of time. What we want to do is we want to make sure that if we are using this money for COVID-related impact on non-for-profits, small businesses, there's many things it can be used for. We want to make sure that we administer that properly and that it's fair. It would be kind of a grant process. So we'll have some work to do there, but some of these organizations and others may be applying when we get to that point, I'll say. And we'll have to, I think, as a council, decide how we want to administer those funds. And that's a totally different discussion for a different day, but it does overlap here with these non-for-profit requests this year. So, Cindy, any comments?
And just a comment to my committee. I've been working quite a bit on it, and I almost have a spreadsheet to get to you, because I think that'll make it easier when we sit down and do some of our final projections.
The only note I'd make here is under cabs, it says $32,150, and then their capital improvement match, I just said see above, and what that means is that capital improvement match, I believe, was included in that $32,150.
$12,150 for one item and $20,000 for the other.
Okay, so the correct numbers in there, the cabs would be $20,000 and then $12,150 for the match. So you can scratch out, the amount's obviously the same, but that breaks it down. So then down in council contracts, the larger increases here are primarily in professional services, our legal services. The number of hours will be, we're going to be probably using more hours based on our experience. We've been kind of keeping track of those hours, and we pay a flat amount, but the number of hours being utilized is a little bit more than what we budgeted for in the past, so we're going to make that whole and bump that up. I think that comes out roughly around 20,000 more. And then there's 24,000 in translation services. I've been working with an organization that'll come in and help us with translation of a lot of our materials, written materials, our website, all those things. Got a lot of work to do to catch up to that. You know, if you think about 10, 11% of our population needs that bilingual support, and that's what we're going to do. It'll also provide translation services as needed. It's a young group out of, a gentleman from Grace College started this translation business, and we're sat down, and again, I sat down with the department heads to talk about their needs, and they all felt pretty strong about the importance of this. So that's where one of the big bumps is in those professional services. Everything else, there may be a few little changes there. Looks like Animal Welfare League's up 5,000. This is more contract, so we have it down there. Same with Housing Authority, they have to be a contract. Facade grants down there, again, all those pretty much unchanged. So there is about a 9% increase in our non-for-profit council requests and council contracts.
AWL did send an itemization of how many animals they were doing each month. Yep, I did get that. So, and I know they had kind of figured out a cost per animal, so that's why that is up.
Yeah, they proposed that a couple of years ago, and it was too late because we already had our contract set. So then last year, in all the fray, it didn't happen last year. And then I just hadn't heard from them. I know they've had some changes, and I thought we'll just plug in what we had. But then they came back and said they wanted to do this contract based on the number of pickups. So we'll work through that, but there won't be it'll be an amount not to exceed 35,000. So that number, that 540,897, goes back to 310 under contracts, professional services, and that's up 6.73% from last year. I did bump the mayor's pre-R fund up $2,000. I know we've been providing the Christmas parties in there, the picnic, and we just want to make sure that we've got enough to take care of our employees that way. Postage and travel are about the same. The big number here is IT. This is where everything's been centralized, including the phone bills. So the phone and everything that comes out to, let's see, $442,600 and $320, up almost, well, it's more than 500% from 5160. 265,000 of that is coming from other budgets. So all the savings from the other departments that you've heard about tonight and we'll hear about at the next meeting, those are costs that were reduced and taken out of department budgets and then put into this budget. So of that 442,600, approximately 265,000 of that is just funds that we've reduced on the other side. The rest of that, the bid contract is in there, and the 120,000 for the bid contract, and then all of the Google board pack, all the things that we had centralized. Some of that last year. I've got a sheet. So what we centralized was Google, Ditto Archiving, BoardPack, Office 365, Adobe Acrobat, Antivirus, Elements, Right Stuff, and email encryption, as well as the MetroNet and Fiber, and that's what added up to that 265,000. Then in last year's budget, we probably had, let's see, about 30,000. Civic Plus website, Civic Ready notification, Civic Parks registration system, archive, social archiving, social media archiving, and Do 12 media support in our Boxcast. So some of the new costs that are in there, I mentioned the contract with BIT, and again, some of those funds came out of the departments. I don't know that they really had line items for BIT. It was just all in their communications. And then the Elements build out some of the contracts for Elements. And then the training we talked about, citywide training program and training for Elements for and GIS employees is in there as well. And they are working towards, the governance committee is working towards creating SOPs for the city. And again, that's probably the big thing they're doing, again, to try and set the expectation for the departments. That's why I say we're starting from scratch, and they made tremendous progress to the point where this budget will certainly solidify their role. So that's really, that's where the big bump is in the budget, is the consolidation there and some of the new services. There's also an increase down in utility. Actually, the insurance decreased 30,000 from last year. Property and casualty. Utility services, we had to add $75,000. If you remember, we're required, our departments are required to pay stormwater fees and our utility fees, wastewater fees. So those will be paid out of your budget. They will be reimbursed with our payment in lieu of taxes. So that's where that'll be, that expansion of the wastewater plant improved our PI, payment in lieu of taxes, that we're able to collect.
And that's, so all of our departments will be centralized now, all of our buildings, like that's for every
Yeah,
piece of
that's
property we
stormwater
own.
and wastewater.
Okay,
And this has been required, this first year we've done this.
right. I knew the legislature passed that, yeah.
I think that's pretty much it. We've knocked down the 400s from 50,000 down to 10, but we're showing about a 31% increase in the budget, in your council budget. I know, Jack, you and I had a chance to go through that. Again, the big part is the governance, IT governance, and the move to centralizing a lot of these services. And again, I know it's a big number, but this is a big shift. And I think getting it done this way, we're going to create a lot of economies of scale. I know one thing that when we were having our discussion earlier tonight, one thing the IT committee's done, they've gone into the departments and they've taken inventory of their computers and all their equipment, and they know how old these computers are. They can anticipate replacing these computers before the hard drives go. So that's another advantage. They can do purchasing, they can do group purchasing, and they can make significant efficiencies when it comes to hardware in departments. But that's one thing. They'll be able to look at the age of a computer and say, look, we're going to replace your computer next year, and not wait for it to tank out. So again, at the end of the day, the council budget is at 30.95% increase. And I'm happy to spend more time if you guys want to dig deeper into this. But the numbers are here now, so at least you got a pretty good idea of where we're starting.
I have a question.
Sure.
On the facade grant, has that been used? Is that being used?
Yeah.
Yes,
Cindy?
it is. Yes, yes, it is, very much so. I can't remember about last year, but I know there are several applications this year as well as several to come yet, so.
And there's several anticipated
Yeah.
with some change in ownership in some storefronts downtown. So
Yes, yes. I think it'll be completely used this
Yeah.
year. As well as, well, we do have a revolving loan fund, not through the city, but through WCDC, and that is being utilized too, so.
Yeah, Rob's doing a good job down at the chamber administering this and going out and really promoting that. So we're very happy about that.
And one other question I had with, so many people this summer working from home, do we need to continue the parking lot contracts?
I think that's probably a fair question.
They're up for renewal pretty soon, just an FYI.
I'll make that note, Mike. That's a good point. I know we eliminated one several years ago, and probably worth asking that question. Lynn, would you make a note of that?
Are you still the AIM
Yeah.
president this year?
Oh.
So we better pay our dues.
We better pay our dues regardless.
AIM has been,
Very helpful.
AIM has been
Yeah.
super helpful navigating all these federal tranches and COVID restrictions, and they've been, never has the organization been more important, and they've just got a great staff. We actually hosted the board of directors meeting last week for AIM here in town, and they were very impressed with our community. We showed them several of our finer establishments, if you will, and we had the mayor from Evansville and Fort Wayne, Mishawaka, very well represented, and had a really good meeting. So
And remember, our insurance comes through there, Mike.
the medical trust is again doing great. I'm president of that group as well, and we'll be doing our underwriting committee later this month to try and set the rates. So, the one thing to understand, and I don't want to get too far off here, but that medical trust is run by municipalities. There's no middleman. And, we sit down with other mayors, clerk treasurers, HR professionals, and set the rates based on the information that comes to us from our actuaries. But, we still have the ability. Last year, I don't know if you knew this, but there was a premium holiday in December, or January this year, meaning we only paid for 11 months of 12 months worth of insurance. And, open book, I mean, our claims experience was down during the COVID years. Nobody was out getting treatment, so, we experienced quite an increase in our revenues, and the board of directors decided to give that back to our communities. So, I'm proud of that, and thanks for mentioning that. So, good questions. Others? Okay, Lynn, would you like me to go to 176 next?
Oh, yeah, you could do that.
I'm just going in order.
That works for me.
This is the ARP relief. Now, I'm going to just tell you, we've studied the buckets of money that the ARP funds are able to be utilized for. Lynn, we've gotten our first tranche of money, correct?
We did, 1.7 something million dollars.
So we ended up with a total of 3.4 something. Actually 3.420,453.92. And we'll get our second tranche in about a year. We have until December of 2024 to allocate and designate this money. And the money then has to be spent by December of 26. So we're in no hurry. We've gone through and looked at the buckets of money that these funds can be utilized for. We know the reporting is going to be difficult. I know the state, Lynn has already been heavily involved with the state to make sure that the reporting requirements and all the handling and allocation of this money is done properly. Hence, the new budget, number 176, the ARP Relief Fund budget. And that's what you see tonight. This is the first year, this is a brand new budget. And this is based on the rules and regulations of dispersing these funds. So if you go back to the notes that I put in, there's 4 buckets of money. There's revenue replacement. Revenue replacement is the least restrictive. So if we can show revenue loss, any of the money that we show as a revenue loss from 19 to 20, and there's, I think, a 4.some%.
4.1%?
Yeah. So Lynn is working with Baker Tilly, and it's not just, hey, we lost $100 or $1,000 here, and you got to take the entire revenue and compare it to the year before. So whatever the total is. So we might have gotten hurt really bad in certain areas, and we may have done very good in other areas, and it may revenue replacement is a guess.
I think, Joe, we have a meeting with Baker Tilly on Thursday for our financial,
Yeah,
and I think we're going to discuss what
Yeah.
the loss. They have a preliminary thing.
we've engaged, I think from the last Board of Works, we've engaged Baker Tilly to help us navigate all these rules and regulations. So, but what I did, again, revenue replacement, infrastructure projects, water infrastructure projects, which would be storm, broadband, and
Sewer.
wastewater, right. So those things are another bucket. The economic effects of COVID are also, need to be documented, but also can be utilized as a legitimate use of the funds. And then, excuse me, premium pay to essential workers or grants to their employers is another tranche of money that is available. And what I tried to do is look back at things we might be able to do with this money. And I just put it in these 1, 2, 3, 4 buckets. And then I applied it to where they would be most appropriate in the budget, whether they be 100s, 200s, 300s, or 400s. So, and I did the budget for the entire tranche of money because we will be getting the second tranche, should be getting the second tranche next year. Obviously, we can't spend what we don't have, but we've already got half, and we should be getting the other half next year. No hurry to spend any of these dollars. This is merely a draft budget so that we can get these funds allocated. More than likely, we're going to have to move them around. We'll have to, we may find a project that, becomes more important. So let's go back to the budget itself. And you'll see I put $200,000 in payroll bonuses just as a placeholder. That's certainly a possibility, and that would have to come out of salaries and wages for essential workers. So essential workers are those that were, by their nature of their job, were in contact with the public during the pandemic. Then if you go to 230, I put 300,000 in. This is just basically repairs and maintenance supplies that we can use those funds on for different projects, internal projects, if you will. Again, just a ballpark number there. 310 would be professional services, $620,000. That would be potentially for engineering for any of these broadband, wastewater, stormwater projects. And then the actual projects themselves, capital improvements, I put 1.5 in infrastructure projects, which would be water and broadband. And other capital outlays, I put improve air quality in public spaces. And then capital improvements from the replacement revenue, I put 400,000 in there. So again, these are very broad buckets, very general numbers that get the money allocated. We come back and move these things around and talk to you all about how you want to spend them. I mentioned the discussion on the economic impacts of COVID and how we may set up a grant program. That's one thing that we really need to sit down and look at how we're going to do that.
So just a question.
Sure.
So this budget goes down to DLGF, but it has more money in it than what we have.
It's considered a home rule fund, so
Okay.
it doesn't really have, it's not tax-based, so we
Okay,
don't
all
have
right.
to report it or anything like that.
Okay, all right.
But when we're figuring out the budgets, we have, like, the last 6 months of this year, we do it for 18 months, and then for the next 12 months, so I appropriately figured the revenue for each year, but we're
All right.
fine, it's.
Okay.
like I said,
Again, this is just kind of giving you an overview. I wanted to
Right.
do that, to give you an overview of how those dollars.
I understand what you're doing in
Yeah.
the buckets and stuff, but I just wanted to make sure we didn't
Yep.
have, it wasn't going to mess up.
No, that's a good
our
question. And
levy, yeah.
believe me, Lynn has been on countless hours of updates from all our friends down in Indianapolis on how this is to be done. So, there you go.
You mentioned a couple times, Mayor, that, we're in no hurry to spend the money, but the thought occurred to me, are there people who really are in need that are in a hurry to get some money?
Exactly. And you're exactly right. And that's why I want to get this money appropriated now.
Now, or
Yeah.
soon?
Soon. And we need to look at those that may be having issues. I know I've looked at a few large, very important organizations in the community that fortunately have been the recipients of other ARP funds outside of those monies that come to us locally, which is great. And that's really what we're trying to do, is supplement those organizations can go after certain funds, ARP funds that are outside of our tranche. And we want them to apply for those and then utilize our funds as a supplement, or if someone is in a hardship and needs it quick. So you're exactly right. And again, I think that's something, once we get through this budgeting process, I know, I talked to the, Fort Wayne actually has a non-for-profit organization that they run these grants through. So this organization is used to doling out funds for those in need. And the city would set up the requirements, and then they would administer and do that. And that's a possibility as well, to take some of the onus off of our in-house committee. And I think that might be something that we need to consider, because we know how difficult this is every year to do this. And I'm sure there's going to be
They're
some.
probably in a better position than us to know who really needs it.
Right. So, like I said, that's the first year for this budget, and it'll be around for a few years. So, any questions on that?
Thanks for the explanation.
No, good questions, and we'll evolve with that, but we're ready to go. Now, if you all appropriate those funds, we'll be ready in 2022. And I believe if something came up sooner, we could probably figure out a way to utilize those funds as well, but for the time being, it's all on paper now for 2022. All right, we'll go to 218, which is our edit fund.
There's nothing in
It's
there.
empty.
I have mine.
I have mine.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, mine.
Can you guys share that don't have them?
I don't have any.
Do you have it?
You pass your book down. let
Look
them
in your
look at it,
next
and
tab,
you
see if
and
it
I
might
will-
have gotten behind the wrong
wow.
tab or something.
Please let Whitney know if you're missing.
Okay.
That's a big job.
I missed what to do that.
Or is it the tab?
So, again, I'll go the explanation sheet. This year, we are paying a third of the Community and Economic Development Director's salary and his administrative assistant out of,
Diane didn't have one either? Oh, here.
out of personal services.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. All right, hang on. All right. Okay.
So we're going to pay a third of Jeremy's salary out of edit, the Community and Economic Development Director, as well as his administrator for 2022. So those wages are reflected. Actually, we're going to pay a quarter of his salary and a third of his administrative assistant's salary. And then those similar proportions on the insurances, FICA, disability, and then the PERF. So there'll be $58,622 out of personal services that were not in there last year. Other professional services, these are primarily economic development contracts, KEDCO, Northeast Indiana Regional Partnership, OrthoWorks, US 30 Coalition, and then there was $650,000, which was 80% reimbursable, that was utilized or will be utilized or PO'd over for the Anchorage Lincoln construction engineering. And then there's $100,000 worth of economic development incentives. This is This is into the KEDCO revolving loan fund, not to be confused with the revolving loan fund that the city set up for an extremity. And there's a separate budget for that, so we'll go into that in a minute. And then I've increased the Parks Office's relocation allocation from 500 to 750,000. And then also the same with the workforce housing project support. We're looking at the Owens property and the acquisition, finalizing that acquisition of that property here, probably yet this month, as well as the other piece of property that's on that block. And we have engaged an organization to come up with a plan, pre-development plan. We'll be utilizing some of the funds from the development fund, the housing fund, that was set up by Zimmer Biomet, IHCDA Foundation, and Lilly. Got about $4 million in stimulus money for workforce housing. So we'll utilize some of those funds. So what we pay cash or whether we just pay the installments, how that ends up, when the developer comes along and purchases the whole thing, or whether we work out what our gap financing is going to be for there. There's a lot of unknowns at this point, but we wanted to have those funds in there as those opportunities come up. And I don't think we've used, I don't believe we used any of the 500,000 yet this year. Other capital outlays are wastewater fiscal obligation from the 2001 is still there at 333,000. So total capital outlays is up 38%. Total budget is actually down 6%. I broke down our balance this year, 3.7 million. Took out the anticipated spending, added back in the anticipated revenue, show what the fund balance should be by the end of the year, and then put that on top as our January 1 balance. Again, utilizing this budget, the anticipated spending and the anticipated revenue to show what our fund balance should be by the end of next year.
By the end of next year?
End of 2022, yeah. So where it says 2021, fund balance as of December 31st is 2.812. And then next year would be 2.009. And again, that's just anticipating those
Yeah, and
spendings.
that's based on what we got this year, so.
That's based on what we got this year.
Because we
And
don't,
our edit was actually up this year, and we're hoping it continues to go up. But, we never know, so we just conservatively base it on what we've received.
we won't get the estimate for next year until later this month.
And more than likely, that anticipated spending, we won't spend that entire amount. It's just what's been budgeted. Questions? All right. Let's go to 242. Did you want to say anything? You've been all quiet here tonight.
I was gonna go all night.
All right.
You guys are doing a great job. How about that? So
All
are
right.
you. Keep it up.
Let's go to Riverboat 242. Not much in here. I did look at potentially pledging 100,000 out of this fund for the new parks building. Again, we'll have to, this is just all, we'll have to wait and see how the BOT comes back and how our financing works for this, but there are some funds available to maybe help buy that down a bit. And then the other would be probably for donation, or excuse me, donation. How about demolition? There are certainly many projects that require demolition, and so we always put some money in there for that. So that budget, again, I basically showed the same thing, what our balance was, our anticipated spending this year, subtract the revenue, or add the revenue in, take that balance up to the 1st of January in 2022, look at this budget, the 250,000 that's in there, and go from there. All right? Oh, yeah. I don't think I put my tab in there. Hang on.
Did you do 220 already?
402. Nope.
220 is the very last. It's
402. CUMCAP development. This is, again, comes from the tax rate. We've kind of pivoted kind of away from roads and streets and gone more towards stormwater projects. With the increase in stormwater fee this year, that's going to help. Obviously, there will be revenue from our trash fee, which will help with roads and streets. So the CCD budget might be a little bit in transition this year. I've maintained the emphasis on stormwater projects because we've got so many of them. So, but we don't have a lot of money in there, as you can see. We anticipated spending $805,000 this year, and typically our revenue is $458,000. So we're kind of relying on the stormwater fee increase to help out, to allow us to do more projects. But I did have to cut the capital improvements from $600,000 down to $300,000. Everything else is pretty much the same in that budget. So we'll be spending less. And again, I don't know where we stand this year. A lot of times these projects, the engineering takes longer than anticipated. And sometimes we don't spend all these dollars, and they'll certainly get carried over. At least they'll be in the reserves. But this is what we're proposing to be spent this year.
You know, at least we have a plan to increase our revenues going forward.
Yes. And again, thank you all for that. I know that was not easy, nor was the trash fee, but you can see where it's really going to help in the budgets. So we'll go to the last budget is 220, and this is the edit RLF. So when you all incentivized an extremity out in the tech park, and I think a lot of you were able to take advantage of their ribbon cutting a couple weeks ago. Now this RLF will house these funds that have the incentive that we've provided them. I believe it's $50,000 a year if they meet those objectives in employment goals that we've set. They made the investment. Now they need to create the jobs, and if they do, that $50,000 a year will come out of this budget. But again, this budget had to be set up separately, so this is another new budget with our RLF, revolving loan fund, that you all control. So, all right, so it's a lot of work, a lot of great things coming. Got a budget that's kind of pivoting with our organizational operational review. If you remember, one of the objectives in there was to create a trash fee, and we've done that. We're getting there with our IT governance. I know one thing that wasn't mentioned that is part of the IT governance is building and plan is getting ready to roll out an online digital permitting. So that's all, again, part of the benefits and advantages for IT. So a lot to come, and we're only halfway through these budgets. Next meeting, again, will be starting at 6 o'clock. Any questions?
Yeah, just one question, only because I've been asked, but are we still working on the fireworks ordinance?
Yes, we are. As a matter of fact, we have a meeting this Thursday between the fire chief, police chief, the mayor, Scott and myself to discuss enforcement.
Yes, that's very much
Yes,
alive.
Yes, very
Yeah.
much alive.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
Someone had asked me about it, so I,
Pretty sure I mentioned to you all, but I think the timing changes that occurred at the lights down here have made a huge difference. I don't know, hopefully you've noticed, there's just not that backup anymore. And I know I was crossing after a train had cleared, and I was on Market going east, and I sat there about a block and a half away. And when the train cleared, I counted 56 seconds that light stayed green for Market Street to clear. And I believe the entire 2 blocks of traffic that had backed up had cleared through. And that was another change that was promised, not only eliminating that delay for both lights, but also improving the cross traffic after the train clears. So I don't know if anybody's had any comments or concerns, but NDOT did what we asked them, and I'm very thankful because it seems to have worked.
I got one question. My wife asked me this, actually.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, well, I listened to her. She said, how come those lights on the east side of the track, when there's no train coming, why can't they be just flashing yellow so that people could, if they come up there, they can pull on over and fill up that space? Because a lot of times, you look over from where they've stopped, and you look up there to the,
There's a great answer to that question.
yeah,
They don't have enough lead time. I think they got 27-second lead time when a train comes.
yeah.
So they wouldn't be able to change those signals in anticipation of the train coming. And the cycle is longer than 27 seconds going north, south, and east and west. So
Have we put those into our traffic report, or, well,
Ordinances?
ordinance, yes?
that's all. Yeah, we wanted to wait till they were done and make sure they were going to stay.
Yeah.
So
That's been added to our traffic there.
our traffic commission will certainly take note of that. And yeah, you're exactly right. That's their role. Jerry, I think if they also had flashing yellow, it would slow people down. People would pause if there was a flashing yellow, whereas with green going through, I mean, when 15 turns red, this one turns red, it's green all the rest of the time.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty confident that it is allowed for stacking in that little area. And it's also really accomplished what they wanted, and that was not having it stacked too far and someone back up onto the track. So the 15 CF&E railroad crossing, I was prepared for the worst and didn't go bad. We didn't get really any too many complaints. I think the traffic, most of the trucks were routed down at 14 and 15 and up on 30, so we didn't get many semis coming through town, and I thought it would be horrible.
I did too.
I'm sure there were times when I saw a few trucks making the turn out here that I'm glad I wasn't parked out there because there was, they got a little close, but for the most part, that whole week went pretty well. The lights down here, they were hooking up the pedestrian crossings today. Hopefully they'll pour cement this week and they'll be done down here. It seems like it's gone a lot quicker than the last time we were on Center in Buffalo. And then they'll start down here at Lake. But they're working pretty quick. Buffalo Street, they should be done soon with the demolition. And there should be, the mixed-use building should be starting up sometime this month. So a lot going on. I know there's been a few of the news, and I think one of the townhomes have sold, so there's some activity there. We're getting there. Larry's working with the engineer to try and eliminate all the rust on the bubbler fountain. That was a little bit disappointing when that came up so quick, but I think they'll add a filter and they could potentially chlorinate it and whatever. The engineer's got that all figured out, so hopefully that'll be
Which
good.
wouldn't be a bad idea with people walking through it anyway.
Yeah. We came down to the carnival the other night with the grandkids, had a ball. They just did a great job down there. Took the grandkids to all the parks, Kerr Park, McKinley Park, down here on the bikes, and we're really lucky. we're really lucky with what we've got here in the community. Larry does a great job in the parks. They're great. US 30, we had a meeting with our stakeholders. We've been talking about the en-route options and the north option and the south option, again, keeping everything open. We'll probably have a public meeting sometime in September and get a little more detailed, not too detailed, but just talk about, NDOT's got rules about how close they can put intersections and interchanges, I mean. So, you can't have an interchange here and then right next to it. They typically have to be in an urban area, they have to be a mile apart. So, we've got interchanges on 15 and one basically at Center Street. So kind of start thinking about where interchanges might go in between and on either side of that. We've sat down with police, fire, schools, elected officials, city planner, county fire, hospitals, and just look to make sure that some of the early options are vetted with them so that, we're not missing something big. Obviously, access to the hospitals is very important. So, a lot going on.
Do you anticipate that project to move a little quicker than you thought it might?
Yeah.
Especially given the infrastructure bill that's
Yeah.
probably going to be passed in Washington?
Yeah, that's all a good point. I talked earlier tonight about that revenue replacement money. You can spend it for anything. And the state's got some revenue replacement money that could potentially help with 30 and 31. So, as you all know, Amazon's got a huge facility going in off Flower Road, and they're already doing an environmental impact study there. They're going to have to create an interchange at Flower Road. So it would be very logical to continue on with the freeway access design in Allen County, and maybe start coming this way. But those funds could be used to stimulate that, and the need to accelerate that Flower Road interchange. You're going to have, I don't even know the number of trucks Amazon's going to be putting on US 30, but kind of underscores the importance of getting this thing going. So I think with Amazon coming in and with the federal money that's coming, it kind of looks like it could be quicker. Now, that's all relative. I was thinking 15 years, maybe a year
I was thinking
ago.
not in my lifetime.
I was thinking 15 to 20 years a year ago, and I it may not be that long. It could be sooner than that, but again, lots and lots can happen. You know how that goes. But I would say it's probably fair to say it might happen, it could happen quicker with those circumstances, but I'm not predicting anything.
I thought you said,
Don't write anything down.
I thought you said,
Spalding, don't hold me to anything.
I thought you said decade, but yeah, I couldn't believe it.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But Flower Road, they're saying,
Like you.
they're going to start construction, I think in 2024.
Jeez.
So, there you go.
Yeah.
And then when those trucks start getting on the highway, Katie bar the door.
Yeah,
I'll
they
never
will.
be able to get out
Yeah.
of the
So, like I said, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on.
What kind of facility is that? Do you know? Is it a distribution?
Yeah, I think it's
center
one of
where they're
their,
just taking stuff to your home? Okay.
I think it's, my guess is there's probably drones involved, although I don't know. But they said it's 6 football fields by 150 feet
Well, it
high.
goes from old 30 to new 30.
Yeah.
They gotta feed it too.
Jeez.
They gotta be taking a
We're-
bunch of stuff in.
we're
take
six-
a bunch of stuff out.
6 weeks away from deer reduction. I mentioned earlier, my management team's getting ready. It'll probably be online training. It'll be mandatory shooting, and we probably will just keep it with veterans again. We've got a good group and a large group, and managing it is,
We need some manpower down in my neck of the woods.
we have been, we continue to look that direction and work in that direction, whether you know it or not. But that's happening. And then also, Mayor, I had an employee along the north-south railroad asking during the workday, is there anything we can do with the train noise, how they're hitting
the horn.
employee said it's not, a long-time worker there, and it's not getting any quieter. And
Right.
with all the stuff that they've been doing, do they need to really hit the horn as long and as, I can, coming to work in the morning at times, I get caught on Main and I'll hear it, but I never thought about it, but this individual said, could you please investigate
You can develop
that?
these noise-free zones with the railroad, but you have to give up something to gain something.
She just wanted to know, could you look and see, could they tone it back instead of, you know?
We talk a lot about that.
Okay, okay.
With the railroad. I'd be happy to mention it again.
She didn't know, and I said, I don't know if we can do anything, but she just said.
By the way, after 3 years, they
It's-
finally got the mess cleaned up down on Ranch Road.
Yeah, it's just it's
The
one
ties
thing
and
after
everything,
another.
they finally did that.
Pile of asphalt.
Did they get the asphalt
ties.
too?
The asphalt and the ties. Yeah.
I said though, I'd.
3 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd forward that to the group. And-
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
The increase in traffic on the road.
I don't know. What do you think, Lynn? You got anything to add?
I don't have anything to add.
Busy night, a lot going on in this great city. All right,
Move to adjourn.
thank you, Jerry. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you all.
I start to get a leg cramp.
Where did it come?
I know that you're.
Yeah.
$3 grand.